Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and today we're having episode 48 of the podcast, Owning IRL and IG. For those of you that are not into leet speak, that is in real life and in game. But, of course, as usual, I have my awesome co-hosting team with me today. I have the man, the myth, the 1990s legend, John Holio. What is up, friend?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
They don't really talk back to you, bro. It's a podcast.
It's a rhetorical question.
Oh, okay. My bad. Got it. You were talking to us. That's what it was.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. And then my counterpart in the Force. I would say the one, but there's two of them, so I have to figure out who the second one is, and then hopefully avoid them sneaking into my Discord. But it's Darth Herman too. Alex, what's up, friend?
What is up, fellas? How's it going?
Not too bad, man. Having a pretty good week. Had a long stream today, and it went awesome, so I'll take it. I think everyone else on the Eternal Discord decided not to stream today, so by default, I monopolized everyone's time. It was glorious. But all right, guys, let's get into a little bit of housekeeping. I want to mention the podcast. That's right. You can catch the podcast, the video version. Oh, yeah, that's right. You are /listening, right? What has the command zone do it? You're listening/viewing the EternalJourney podcast. Yeah, there you go. So you can catch the video version of this show. If you're a visual learner and want to see pack one, pick ones, or what's the plays and stuff like that, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. Just look up EternalJourney. That's right. We finally got enough subscribers and followers there to lock in our own address or URL. So you guys can check it out at EternalJourney. Find out draft videos, sealed videos. I just posted up the gameplay of the Tuesday Night Eternal Constructed Invitational. So if you want to check that out, it's both Expedition and Throne format. Find out how good or bad I did and the kind of punt. And then, of course, Cube Drafting on Twitch every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where you can join us, chat with all three of us now. You guys have made a habit of hanging out in my stream, which I think is great. So I appreciate that. Come in there, talk to us about your draft picks, talk to us about some great stories and some horrible stories, and then you can cube draft with us, which I'll talk about in a moment here. Typically every Sunday. I would like it to get a little more popular. John Holio mentioned it offline that we're kind of competing with a lot of things now Sundays between, people having family commitments as well as the... What is it? Is it Expedition Melee?
And melees and Throne things and
Throne brawls, Throne
weekends only.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So once again, it is completely free to join, and you can just hang out and watch. But okay, moving on to shoutouts. Shoutouts this week, we have 3 new Padawans in the Jedi Order. So thank you guys so much for the ongoing support. Subbing on the Twitch channel, that is The Pinnacle 316, T-Feek, and Kill Moon 99. Thank you guys so much for the subs. I really do appreciate it. Lets me know you guys are enjoying the content and getting something out of it, which means the world to me as well as us. We use it to further push the show, take it to another level. So I really, really appreciate that. And of course, a great big old thank you to all the ongoing support. Slowly but surely, we're creeping up on getting, we have a couple of people that are up on their 8-month subs. So they're creeping on getting that, not Baby Yoda, it's just regular Yoda. Twitch icon or emote. Yeah, no, it actually is kind of tilting me a little bit that everyone's calling it Baby Yoda since it's not Yoda, but that's just the OCD nerd in me. Since obviously they already said it, right? The Mandalorian's not Boba or Jango Fett, right?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so there you go. Anywho, thank you guys so much for the ongoing support. I really do appreciate it. And stay tuned. At the end of the show, I will be talking about how to enter into a special giveaway that we are devising for episode 50. That's right. It's going to make a little over a year that I've been doing the podcast, but I figured episode 50 would be a good benchmark. So we were going to be doing something special about that. Be on the lookout for questionnaires and stuff on Reddit and Discord by Alex or Darth Herman 2, so we can have some special stuff for episode 50. But all right, guys, that is going to do it, which means I get to introduce our special guest today, someone that I highly respect and enjoy watching on stream. They have been in Eternal for quite some time, quite the staple on stream, like I just mentioned. They have 5 ECQ top 64s to include a 4th place finish, and has been making a top 100 in all 3 formats month after month after month, which, trust me, it is no easy feat. Not only skill intensive, but also time intensive. I want to welcome on the show EternalJourney. What is up, friend?
Hey, thank you so very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure, honestly. I think we kind of just like haphazardly mentioned it, and it just kind of snowballed into a thing, which I was super happy about, because I do consider you a eternal celebrity. I'm still an up-and-coming podcaster, so...
You are way too kind.
So I've been told. Apparently, I need to be meaner. The Misplay podcast always gives me some stuff about being a little too kind, so I'm trying to be a little meaner. So
I think you're spot on here, though. Nick is someone I've looked up to since I started playing the game about a year ago.
Bam, there you go. Yeah, Nick,
thank you.
It's great because you're a fun streamer to watch. You're very, you explain your plays, right? You're human. You tilt, you get excited, and you're just sound player. I don't know. Like, I appreciate the content you put out, and you were one of the people I gravitated to fairly early in my Eternal career as well. So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's great to have you on the show, and I hope other people get to meet you. Which I know sounds a little weird because, like I said, I'm pretty sure you're more popular than all 3 of us put together. But hey, you know, maybe you get 1 or 2 new people on there. So.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for having me. This is like my highlight, right? Like I do the stream thing a couple times a week, but like this isn't something I normally get to do. So like I'm actually very excited to get to do this with all of you. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it ends up being a lot of fun because most people are like, man, I don't know, talking on a show seems a little hard, this and that. But then the fundamental part of this podcast is we're just talking about Eternal. And let's be honest, like, who doesn't like talking about Eternal all day?
Yeah, I'd love to do it.
So, you know what? I was going to save it for a little later in the show, but we're already there. Let's go ahead and talk about your streaming a little bit, and then we'll jump into our pack one, pick one. I don't mind being a little flexible. So go ahead and plug your streaming in as far as when you do it and what kind of, how long you've been streaming, and then what kind of stream do you have?
Sure. So I have been streaming for it's been about a year and a half, as long as I've been streaming Eternal. I streamed for about 8 or 9 months before that, during the MTGA closed beta. But when I found Eternal, when I got to play that and try that out, I switched over to Eternal, streaming that, and kind of haven't looked back. You can find me at twitch.tv/enroush1, and my stream, like you said, I try to keep it as real as possible. When you're seeing me on stream, that's me. You know, I tilt, I get frustrated, I swear. I have all the highs and lows that you would experience, you know, playing Eternal, and just, you know, trying to be myself and enjoy the game with other people watching.
Yeah, and your music's pretty good too. Not gonna lie, we've jammed out quite a bit there.
I also look forward to the next. Look forward to the next Twitch Sings stream as well.
And then, what days do you stream?
Oh yeah, typically it's Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night. So Sunday, Monday, Thursday, starting usually around like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes I miss a day in there. Schedules don't line up. I do have a wife, and so whenever I get a chance to like spend time with her, I like to do that. But generally, those 3 days during the week is when I stream.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of worked out kind of well for us because depending on who ends up quitting earlier, we normally raid each other, so that works out at least on Monday night. So that makes me feel a little good.
And then, hey Nick, am I tripping, or did I once like see your wife tell you on Twitch to like feed the cats or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
My wife used to work third shift, and when I was streaming the one night going late, she would jump in Twitch chat and remind me to feed the cats or take out the garbage or something like that.
That's awesome.
I caught the wife plus chat draft the other night. That was epic.
That's fun.
That
was a good deck too.
She has just totally won massive cool points with me, not even knowing her. So we gotta ask: does the wife play Eternal?
She does not. I used to play the World of Warcraft card game, and pretty competitively there as well. And she played along with me there, so she knows some like basic, card game things. Basic, card advantage. Being aggressive, controlling. She can kind of understand what costs are, the different factions, but she does not play Eternal. Okay.
All right. One last thing on the wife then, because we're going to get into this later on. Does she play board games with you?
She does. She loves playing board games. We have a way too big collection of board games, and we enjoy playing those together, definitely.
Awesome.
All right. So do you guys prefer 2-player games or massive multiplayers?
I don't want to speak for her, but I actually prefer some of the 2-player games that we play with each other. Things like Seven Wonders Duel, Lost Cities, Jaipur. There's a lot of really good Patchwork's another fantastic one that we play all the time. Specifically 2-player games. There's a lot of them out there, and probably a lot more than you might think. Games that are specifically designed for two people, and they're great for a couple to sit down and play.
Nice. Do you guys, and this is just my own input, have you, and we'll lead into that in a second, like when we get to that part, but have you played 15-second Zombies 15? Yeah, Zombies 15, I think is what it's called. Have you heard of that game?
I haven't.
Ooh, all right. So I will recommend this for anyone. It's actually, I think it's up to a 5-player game. I bought this a long time ago, but long story short, it is a zombie survival game, right? Zombie apocalypse, you're trying to survive. But they designed the game to add added stress and pressure to you because it comes with a CD that has a sound. I know, a CD. Some of you might not have the slightest idea what I'm talking about. But it plays 2 different soundtracks. And you have like a 15, or there are 2 15-minute, that's why it's called Zombies 15. You have 15 minutes to complete the scenarios. And it comes with like, I think 18 scenarios, but it walks you through the zombie apocalypse. And it comes with the tiles, so you keep moving the tiles around to shift from one level to the next, and you're racing against time against the computer, so you can have for one person all the way up to 5. But it's exciting because the 2 tracks, you have a track where the zombies attack every 90 seconds and another one where the zombies attack every 60 seconds. So you're playing this game, but you're playing it under time because like you can't just sit there and think about things, because the longer you take to think, then you hear the zombie growl on the track, and then zombies attack and you have to react to it. And the game is a ton of fun because you really do feel the pressure. And they did a really good job on the soundtrack, because as you get closer to the 15-minute mark, like the sounds get more exciting, more amped up, and then like people, like we don't play the game sitting down. Every time I've played that game, we've started sitting down and everyone ends up standing up because we're like, hurry up, do this, and people are freaking out. It's a ton of fun. Absolutely.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and it, honestly, I've never beat the game. I think the highest I've gotten is to like level 8 before we either ran out of time or just people are like, all right, I'm tapped out, my heart can't take this anymore.
Wow.
So
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's super great. Like the first mission, you're just trying to escape the neighborhood, and then you have to go to a mall, you have to get gas for a truck. It's absolutely great. The game is a ton of fun. You have to be careful who you play it with, but because like I said, it is intense, and if someone's a little not quite the gamer thing, you get a little frustrated because you're like, you need to stop taking 3 minutes on your turn.
Right.
But the game is, I definitely highly suggest it, just because it's one of those games that you can play against the computer, and it really, or not the computer, but the board game itself. It's a lot of fun. It's called Zombies. I want to say Zombies, like 15-minute, I guess. I don't know. You can't miss it. Like the box says Zombies, and it has the little like :15 on it. So
cool.
But yeah,
sweet. I'll check it out.
All right, cool. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and start getting into some more content. I'm sure people want to hear about all the things. We have a lot to talk about today because, Interrot, you're kind of like me with the whole jack of all trades. You do a little bit of everything, which I'm super excited to talk about. You're like one of the coolest people I know, let alone coolest people on Eternal. So I'm totally like fanboying over here. But all right, so luckily the people watching on YouTube will only have to see my face doing this. But all right, so we're gonna go into our pack one, pick one, guys, and we have something a little special today. We've done it before once, and we're going to do it again because actually that is, believe it or not, one of my more popular episodes, which caught me off guard, but it is cube drafting. So we're going to do a pack one, pick one today with Enrouch, but Enrouch does have a background in cube drafting as well. I believe you have, I think you said you have at least one cube IRL, right? Or were you only playing your friends?
I have one cube IRL, and I've had multiples over the years. A couple of my friends also have cubes of different cubes, and so I'm well versed in Magic the Gathering cube drafting. I haven't had a chance to play in your Eternal cubes yet, but they look like a ton of fun. I follow them all the time. I just can't play in them due to scheduling, but yeah, I'm all about the cubes.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about having a off day cube tournament that I'm working on. There's a bunch of stuff I have working on for the EternalJourney kind of universe, but it's all about time and scheduling and delegating and stuff like that. All right. So for those of you that don't know, cube drafting is something that was created for Magic the Gathering, and I liked it so much that I brought it over to Eternal, and it's getting steam. It's there, but still not a lot of participation. I think it could be a little intimidating for people, but long story short, what a cube is essentially a draft format that anyone can create on their own with any kind of theme or structure that they want. It can mimic a real set. It can mimic a set of their own design. Like, for example, I have a multi-faction only cube. I have, as far as for Eternal goes, I have a odd cube, so every card is 1, 3, 9, or 5, 7, and 9, and so you devise it of your. You can throw rarity out the door, right? So, for example, you'll see in our pack one, pick one today, you'll see several rares and legendaries where in a normal pack you might only see 1 or 0. So that is also exciting, where you get to see all kinds of cool, fun synergies with cards that you may not essentially get to play with on the regular. And then of course there's the added bonus where you get to play with cards that might have not made the cut for constructed because some other more powerful card took the spotlight, and or the fact that you just don't see it in draft. We do, because we are not allowed to challenge each other with 45 card decks yet, we do draft a 5th pack. This gives us a decent amount or chances of having enough playables to make a 75 card deck. So that is the only difference as far as limited and constructed goes for Eternal cube drafting. But yeah, and John, I think you had mentioned, or was it Alex, that on the stream somebody said they were working on...
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah, LSV was streaming Eternal the other day and mentioned they were working on some custom game options. So that's real exciting.
Sweet. I wonder if my cube drafting made a difference. But all right, sweet. So we have a pack one, pick one here of my powered cube. This is the first cube I made for Eternal. Should need a little tweaking, but right now this pack seems pretty interesting. So I'm going to go over all the cards very quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on any individual card, just because I know cube is still kind of a niche thing. But considering that Enrouch, you have experience in cube, I want to go ahead and take advantage of that as well as your massive limited experience. And then, of course, you've chimed in on some of my pack one, pick ones on Twitter, so I do appreciate that. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. First off, we have Iron Fist Chancellor. This is the 2/2 for 2 Justice. Pay 5 to play a 2/2 soldier with a copy of each weapon on Iron Fist Chancellor. Tribute, play a +2/+2 longsword on Iron Fist Chancellor. Then it is a legendary soldier. Next up, we have Cauldron Cookbook. This is the campaign all-star back in the day when Winchest was okay dealing a ridiculous amount of damage to itself. This is the 2 Fire relic at rare. Once per turn, you may pay 3 to put a Firebomb into your deck, then draw a card. And Firebomb obviously is a slow spell that when you draw it, it deals 5 damage to your face and then goes directly into the void, and then you could draw a card. Another card, I should say. Next up, we have Innate Conviction. This is 4 Primal, a legendary slow spell with Warp, and then deals 3 damage. Onslaught, create and draw a 3/4 Arc Dragon. 3/4, the Arc Dragon is a 3/4 flyer, overwhelm, and gives spells a +1 damage. I don't know if it has Berserk or not. This is screenshots, so I can't look at the preview.
Yes, Berserk.
Okay, all right, cool. Next up, Rip Knife Assassin. This is a 2/2 unseen at uncommon for 2 and a shadow. It has deadly, it has Warcry. Then we have Find the Way. Uncommon slow spell for 2 time. Echo. Draw a sigil of your choice from your deck. It is depleted when played. And to round off half the pack is Adolescent Deathjaw. This is a 3/2 dinosaur at uncommon for 2 and a time. Then you can shift it for 3, so it comes into play shifted, and then 3 turns after that it emerges. You may put an exhausted enemy unit into its owner's hand. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. And Raj, out of those 6 cards, is there anything there that stands out to you?
The top row, there's 2 cards that stand out to me. Rip Knife Assassin and Find the Way both really, really intrigue me as a first pick.
Why is that?
So Rip Knife Assassin, what I think cube drafting, you still have to keep your curve in mind. You still want powerful cards at every stage of the game, and Rip Knife Assassin does exactly that. So like, it's an impactful unit that you're going to play, that you can play on turn 2. You got the extra buffs from the Warcry. Later in the game, it can trade up with other ground units. I think it's a fantastic card, and probably maybe a little underrated by a lot of people. Find the Way does something that not many cards in Eternal do, which it gives you free card advantage. The fact that it has Echo, giving you extra cards that can synergize with merchants, that can synergize with looting type effects. Not to mention, it also can fix your influence for like splash colors, or just get you extra power and make sure that you can hit power every single turn of the game all the way up to your later stuff. So both of those cards really, really interest me from the top row of cards.
Okay, nice. And of course, too, something to mention that they both are just a single influence requirement. So, Mr. Skycrag, John Holio, how do you feel about Innate Conviction for a first pick? Just out of curiosity.
I'm definitely not into that. I'm not really high on that card in general. Any deck I've tried it in, like even in constructed, it's been kind of underwhelming. Like, it's not always easy to get the Onslaught, which is the big payoff for the card, and then it's got double influence. It costs 4 to deal 3 damage. It's a lot of things it's trying to do, and it's not easy to do most of them, honestly.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Let's move on to the second half of the pack. We have Corendon Cargo. This is the slow spell at rare for 1 neutral, and you can draw either a Time Sigil, Justice Sigil, or Shadow Sigil. And then if you have double influence of those 3 factions, you get to transmute it into a Contraband, where it will give you potentially a card of each one of those factions. So you get a random Time card, a random Justice card, and a random Shadow card to pick from. Then we have Syl, Hand of the Cabal. She is a 4/5 rogue at legendary for 5 double fire, double shadow. She has unblockable, she has pledge, and then she reads, when Syl hits the enemy player, you get +1 power this turn for each of your units that dealt damage. So they don't have to hit the opponent, they just have to deal damage this turn. Then we have Constructed All-Star World Bearer Behemoth. This is a 6/7 dinosaur at legendary for 5 triple time with Overwhelm. It reads, when World Bearer Behemoth attacks, play 1 random power card from your deck. Then increase this ability by 1. So second time it attacks, it does it twice. The time after that, it does it 3 times, etc., etc. We have Cerso's Cleaver, which is really surprising to me that this card never saw constructed play, at least for as long as I've been playing, just because it seems really powerful to me, but I've only seen it in limited, so maybe that's why. But this is Cerso's Cleaver is a 3/3/3 legendary weapon for 5 time Primal Shadow. Summon, the wielder gets Killer. Spellcraft 2, play Feeding Time, which turns a unit into a 2/2 pig and then kills it. Shanks it good, or I guess cleaves it. Then we have Corrupt. This is the rare fast spell for 2 shadow, and it reads, negate an enemy spell played on you or one of your units. Then steal it and play it from your void. So a slightly easier to cast Ferox choice. And then Fierce Mosaraptor.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Give it a little spice. I like it. It's a 3/4 dinosaur at uncommon for 4 and a time. It reads Tribute. Give it Killer. So 5 color good stuff, Alex. I see Cargo. I see Find a Way. I see Cerso's Cleaver, buddy. How are you feeling?
See, maybe my inexperience in Cube is rearing its head here because the Behemoth is the pick for me, I think.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Why is that?
I think that's incorrect, right? But I don't know. It's just a really good 5-drop. I mean, I know it would put me in time. I think I would probably pick that and just try to pick all the good time cards, and you see if it gets me there. Like, I wouldn't even consider the Echo Fixing card that Nick had mentioned. Like, I wouldn't even think to pick that one first, but that might be the pick,
I mean, it's a preference between flexibility and high risk, high reward, right? Because, I mean, who's not happy to play Behemoth? If it sticks on the board, it just wins you the game. So it could be a thing. And then obviously Find a Way is just one of the most flexible cards, that and Cargo, that you could take. I mean, Find a Way even more, because all you need is one time influence, and then all of a sudden you can get your fixing. All right, Nick, what's your, now that we've seen the whole pack, what are you looking at?
So I'm still looking at the 2 cards, Rip Knife Assassin and Find the Way, but Cerso's Cleaver jumps out to me as kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, right? It's such an incredibly powerful card. Most of the time, it's going to be a 3-for-1 when you play it. The downside being that it has triple influence. But if you're the type of person who wants to be super, super greedy and take the Cerso's Cleaver here just because of the super high power level, I think that's perfectly defensible. If me personally picking between those 3 cards, oh man, I would probably take the Find the Way. I know it's not a flashy pick. I know it's not a, it's a pretty boring pick when you really get down to it. But I think me personally, that would be my pick.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and one of the things that I think we should touch on is this is a powered cube, which is terminology. I know it's a little weird because we have power in Eternal, but it just essentially means that there is a higher rarity and higher baseline for power, or the power level of these cards. And so certain cards are interchangeable. So yes, in a nutshell, in a typical draft, things like Behemoth and Cerso's Cleaver would be absolutely backbreaking, but because there's such a high density of those cards in this cube specifically, Find a Way is one of those things where it gives you the access to the most amount of cards later in the draft. And that is something that we do talk about in this show, where sometimes you do want to try to stay open and give yourself the first couple of picks access to the highest amount of cards to make your deck. And so, yeah, Find a Way could be a boring pick, but it also has a very high chance of A, making your deck, and B, also, if you see an even more powerful card come down later on in the pack, you're able to play that as well. So I think they're both justified. It just depends, obviously, on fixing and things like that within the cube, which typically you want to find out ahead of time, and most cube curators will be able to break that down for you. But I could see that, and then also falls down to personal preference as well. I don't see anything wrong with either taking Bear Behemoth or Find a Way right now. John, where are you at?
Yeah, those are all super viable picks. Like, I've played this cube a bunch. I think this is the one we've done the most on your stream, and I've seen just about every configuration of factions work, and I've seen all these cards played, and yeah. Those are all very defensible choices, and honestly, this is a very tough pack one, pick one for me. I'm kind of between the Rip Knife Assassin and the Cleaver, I think. And this early in the pack one, pick one, I think I might lean towards the Assassin here, just because of its flexibility and how it's good at any point in the game, turn 2 or later.
Yeah, I
not the most exciting, but it's just going to be solid. And I think like the shadow in the cube, obviously in the game, shadow tends to have the most removal. And I think removal is pretty important in this cube. I found from playing it. So kind of definitely down to be in that color. Yeah, that's probably my pick here.
Yeah, Rip Knives is just great. It's like Imrod said, it's good early, it's good late. You need some early drops. I think that's where a lot of people mess up. So I'm going to throw a wrench in the gears, guys, and I probably actually would even consider Cauldron Cookbook, because I don't hate fire, and any kind of card advantage typically helps you win games. So I would not be opposed to taking Cauldron here, and then just maybe it makes my deck, maybe it doesn't. Obviously, if I'm more aggressive, actually, I think it would just make my deck, period, because if I'm able to stall the game, then I have time to draw extra cards. And if I'm an aggressive deck, one of the things that I could potentially run out of or lose to is a board wipe. So Cookbook gives me the ability to essentially get back some of that card advantage if I do lose to a deck that has massive removal or something like that. So I wouldn't be opposed to taking Cookbook here either for myself, but I gotta admit, I do get a little gutsy when it comes to cube drafting and try to do some broken things thanks to LSV. So
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about that pick. If you could challenge someone with 45 card decks and you were playing a 45 card deck, does that change your evaluation of that card?
ooh, see, that's why I like you, man. Such a smart human being. I think I still would take it, and I'll tell you why. It doesn't put them on the top of your deck. And I think that makes a difference because they're you can see both sides of the spectrum, right? I've cookbooked, and literally the next card I've drawn is a firebomb to the face. And I've played a game where I cookbooked like 6-7 times and never saw a firebomb. So I think the interesting thing about Cookbook is that it's not cut and dry. You just keep drawing cards. There is a fine line of, I'm at 7 life. I probably shouldn't cook the books anymore. I think I would still consider running it. And we don't know. There's lifesteal units. I could very easily be Stone Scar, pick up a Vara, pick up what's the other flying lifesteal guy that's in the cube? I forget now, but I could get some life gain. So once again, I'll be honest, personally for me, when I draft, I typically am always prepared to ditch my first pick. So that's why I'm a little more flexible with my first pick. It is a good point. I don't think I would cook the books as much. Like, I'm not just going to run this out on turn 2 and then immediately start cooking the books with it in a 45 card deck. But I do think that, sometimes just getting an extra 2 or 3 cards in a limited game can make the difference between win or lose. We've seen that with things like Sodi Spellshaper. We've seen it with the Frost Talisman, right? Is that the 2-cost one that draws you a card for 7?
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Moondial, right? So I think, especially in a limited game where you have limited resources, even in a cube, sometimes having 2 or 3 cards over your opponent is enough to get you there. So I think I would still take it. That is a consideration, though. It would lose some points going from a 75 card deck to a 45 card deck, because obviously that's a higher chance of it being in your top 20 cards or top 10 cards and getting smashed in the face with it. But
see, I think that was a great question, and I think it goes down a little bit more, not just because of the firebombs and all that, and I think the 45 card versus 75 card makes building a tight aggressive deck more of a possibility, and so you might not ever even get to use those extra cards or anything if you're just getting ran over. Like, it's possible to do an aggro deck with this cube, but it's not going to be nearly as consistent as if you can have a smaller deck size, I think. That's another consideration.
And it's part of the mechanics of Eternal as well, right? Because you have to do this at slow speed. You have to do it on your turn. You can't just leave up a combat trick and then if you don't have to use it, then draw a card. So that is something that draws down to it. But it is on the installment plan. It's only 2 to play. It's only 2 to play and then 3 to activate. So I could see, especially if you're in an aggressive deck, even if you're curve off at 5, right? You can play this on 2 somewhere and then, play a 2-drop, play this. And then later on in the game, if you're like, all right, well, I have 6 power and I'm not doing anything, so let me just draw a card.
Yeah.
What about you, and Rouch? Would this completely be off the books on a 45 card deck for you?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty much where you are. I think I would still I would evaluate it just about the same, but during gameplay, depending on the situation, I may be more I may be less prone to activate it as aggressively as what I would in a 75 card deck. Mm-hmm. My pick here was already not cookbook, so I'm not like it's not going to go up in my thing, but I think it would go down a little bit in 45 card decks.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, there's cards like Lethrai Soothsayer, for example, that go way up when the deck size shrinks.
Oh yeah, very good point. Very good point. That
was a good example right there.
Yeah, actually, a funny story about that. A quick plug for Farming Eternal. So one of the first tournaments they did was the double draft duels, and I chose a Wicked Skycrag deck I had that had Lothrai Soothsayer in it. So I was like, sweet. And, you doubled everything. You doubled your best draft deck for the event, and it was a 90 card deck. Let me tell you something, even having 2 Lothrai Soothsayers in a 90 card deck, that card is not nearly as good. Oh no. Man, I recorded that tournament, and I think literally I did 1 bolt off the top, prophetic bolt. That was it. And there were some times where I played both back to back, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing it, we've got this. And I never saw bolt. I was like, oh, I feel bad. Oh,
Sounds
man,
about right.
Yeah.
Like
all right,
that puts the 4 weapons in your deck, that one's not as good in a 75 or 90 card deck either.
Oh yeah, chemo. Yeah. Yeah,
sure.
It's like, good luck, Godspeed, friend. All right, sweet guys. All right, so that's our pack 1 pick 1 for this week. Special thanks to Enrouch for coming on and letting us do a little bit of cube drafting. We might revisit cube again. Let me know in the show notes if this is something you guys are interested in, and we might dabble in it again. I have been wanting to do a show where we just walk through an entire cube draft with Alex, because he has a little less cube experience. But yeah, so that's gonna kind of do it. Before we jump into our main topic, all things cube. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here just because, once again, I got Enrouch and he understands. So real quick, John had come down for the holidays to visit his family here in Texas, and so John and I got together, and he was able to come over, and we drafted one of my powered cube for MTG. And I'd like John to talk about it a little bit, because it's one of the reasons why I built a cube in the first place, which is the ability to play cards that you either used to love playing with, or cards that you've never played with before and had a chance to play with it competitively in a format that's accommodating to that. So John, you don't have to get into too many specifics. In fact, I'll just go ahead and throw this out here. There was at one point where I was holding on a counter spell for John's bomb. I was holding on to this card for 4 turns, not using my power to be able, or mana, whichever you guys want to use it, to counter this big bomb unit. John finally plays it, playing all his power, so he's depleted. I go to counter it, and then there's a special card. There's a couple of cards in Magic that lets you use an alternate cost, so they're essentially 0. He had the counter spell to my counter in his hand, and just completely blew me out that game. And he had a blast. It was amazing. I tilted a little bit, but it was a ton of fun. It was great to see the expression on his face when he was able to do it. It was like, these cards are awesome. So John, why don't you talk about your experience real quick, and then Enrouch, we can let you kind of go deeper on it.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. Like, there were some cards in there I was familiar with and were some, favorites of mine from over the years, and then there was a ton that I've seen people play on stream, and the Magic powered cubes and things like that I've always wanted to try and always wanted to play with, and was some of them vaguely familiar with, and I made some play mistakes, and some that I had heard they were powerful but didn't quite understand why or anything like that until you really got to play with them. So yeah, it was just such a fun experience. The deck I drafted felt pretty busted. I mean, yours was as well, of course. I mean, that's the nature of a power cube. But I mean, the games were great. Somehow we both ended up, basically playing blue-black, which is kind of funny. But we did like a sealed, because it was just the 2 of us. So I mean, it makes sense that we both kind of get there just based on our pools. But those games were so much fun.
Well, plus it's a lot harder to shuffle in real life, so it was bound to happen. It wasn't probably the most highly shuffled packs.
Right, I'm sure that had something to do with our pools being somewhat similar there, but yeah, my deck had, like you just mentioned, Pact of Negation. I've never played that card, but that was sweet. I had Jace the Mind Sculptor. I had a few Lilianas in there, including Liliana of the Veil, and at one point I had both of those on the board at the same time. Grave Titan,
yeah, it was
all these great
wonderful.
cards from Magic wonderful. History. I played Magic, back when it first came out, but I didn't really get into it or anything until much later, 2007 or something is when I really kind of got into it a little bit, and then much more a few years after that even. So, I was vaguely familiar with some of those cards, and some I wasn't familiar with at all. And man, it was just everything about it was so much fun. Thanks for having me for that, man.
Thanks for
Let's do it again.
Thanks for making. Yeah, I'm sure. Thanks for making the drive. We'll have a EternalJourney con eventually, and we'll just bring all the cubes out there. So, Enrouch, talk a little bit about all the cubes you've done, and some background for people to maybe hopefully cross over into Eternal's cube and stuff like that. Maybe inspire people to make their own.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think everything. I echo everything that John said. It's getting to there's okay. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. There's all of these different card interactions that you never would see in a normal constructed game or any real formats, and maybe not even in things like Commander or any other casual format. You just get to see all these awesome interactions that you don't get to see before. A lot of what cube drafting, and especially if you're building a cube too, is personal preference and personal nostalgia, because you are the one that kind of gets to mold this thing into what you want. If you want to do something like and we're going in the Magic direction here. If you want to do like, I guess you could do this Eternal too. You could do like a pauper cube where everything's, only commons or only commons and uncommons. My personal cube it's a powered cube, but it's only up through Scourge. So it's everything that doesn't have a modern border. So it's only cards from Alpha up to, let's see, Scourge came out in like 2003, something like that. Because that's when I played Magic the most, and that's what I enjoyed. So I kind of put that together so I could get to enjoy these cards in much of the same way that I enjoyed them when I was younger. I mean, I've played cubes that are all the same color. I've played cubes that are tribal based. I've played cubes that are just based around combos, and you're trying to jam as many 2-card combos into your deck. And it's just so great to see all of these awesome interactions that you don't normally get to see, as well as experiencing other people's cubes, kind of getting a feel for how they enjoy Magic and how they've constructed a thing. Because there's a lot of work that goes into building a cube, and kind of getting to know someone through what they like about Magic or what they like about cube drafting, by experiencing their baby that they've put together here is it's just such an awesome experience.
Man, you hit the nail on the head. The both points are great. Like, just the interactions. Every game of Limited is already unique, and when you start throwing in more powerful cards that have more ways to interact, the stuff you can create is just super fun. You're like, that is so cool, and it ends up being an enjoyable experience on both sides of the board. And you're right. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I almost enjoy building a cube more than I enjoy playing it and watching other people have fun. Like, that was the thing. Like, I got my butt handed to me. I think we played 4 games and it was 3-1, John, I think, or did we play 5 and 2-3 or something like that?
I think we ended up playing a 5th one even. Yeah, I think it was 2-3.
But like,
pretty even.
But yeah, just watching you like, hey, let me play Jason the Mind Sculptor. Oh my god, I could do this. Oh wow, it does that. This card is insane. Like, it was so much fun to watch you enjoy it like that. It was absolutely amazing, and that's what I enjoy, and that's why it was great. For example, the power cube that we talked about today, I put strangers in it on purpose, and I remember I was commentating and observing a game, and sure enough, someone was like, oh, wait till you see my deck, and they had built strangers, and they were just having the time of their lives. They were talking it up in chat, and things like that are absolutely amazing. I think why I enjoy it so much. So I do encourage you guys out there in listening land or viewers land or whatnot, if you are interested in trying to do it, build your own cube. Go to Eternal Warcry. Shout out to Stever Cakes and Cassandras for making this happen. Build your own cube there, and who knows, maybe you can get a couple friends together and play it. It's completely free to draft it. You just gotta build the cards online. But we did at one point, I did a set 1 throwback, right? So everyone that came in there, I made packs of set 1, that was it, and we drafted literally set 1, and it was something that I had never done before, but I was able to live through it, and it was great. We had like No Verb in there, and I think Overmaster was in there, so they were talking about some of the cards in the packs and stuff like that because they were around for that format. And so things like that are absolutely ecstatic. Like, you can't put a price tag on that kind of enjoyment.
Yeah, just the construction part is the fun part, or maybe the most fun part for a lot of people. And like, you've built a bunch of great Eternal ones already, and like you said, like, anyone can do this on Eternal Warcry, and like, literally, if you are build a good cube for Eternal and are proud of it, like, I'm sure if you bring it to Jedi's stream, we can run it one of these times, right? Like,
yeah, I wouldn't see why not. I mean, Alex, you've watched a lot of the cube drafts, man. You could talk about some of the swingy games we've had where it's just like people are just throwing haymaker on top of haymaker turn after turn with these top decks.
Yeah, they're games that are just like back and forth, and you get to play with all the cards that are like no longer in the limited environment, at least for me, which is what I mostly play. So it's crazy interactions going off. It's fun to watch. It really is.
Yeah, because you get all these powerful cards, and it's different when you see them in constructed, where you expect it, right? Because everyone's running 4-ofs. But when there's only 1 of in deck, all of a sudden you could see someone play a behemoth and give it killer and kill like one thing and get a power, but then the next person draws a harsh rule and wipes the board, and then the other person top decks Psychalis, so you're just like, oh my god, it's absolutely great. It's
right. Described it good with haymakers just back and forth.
Yep. But all right, I think that's going to be enough for cube drafting and stuff. Some people are probably like, all right, let's get to some Eternal stuff, which sadly, I'm going to have to postpone you guys a little bit longer because, like I said, Enrouch is one of the coolest people I know because not only does he own the game in-game, I guess, not only is he fantastic at owning face in-game, but he's also a store owner. That's right. He owns a gaming store IRL, and I want to talk about it because I think that is the coolest thing in the planet. It's definitely not an easy undertaking, something that a lot of people have thought about doing, but it is very intimidating. Gaming, anytime you want to get in an industry that is strictly a want, you run the risk of, essentially that's the first thing to go typically when people are being responsible and when they're trying to divvy up their time and their finances. Most adults cut the wants first. I mean, obviously sometimes you need that escape, and now nerds are becoming more prevalent in today's society. But still, it's anytime, any business, not only gaming, but any business is very intimidating and hard work. And the fact that you were able to, I think, is absolutely astonishing. Kudos to you, sir, for doing that. So tell us a little bit about your store. You don't have to go too in depth, but how long you've been open, when you opened it, why'd you do it, and what kind of things you focus on your store, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I like Jedi said, I do own a local game store. It's a hobby gaming store. We focus on tabletop gaming, mostly Magic the Gathering. We buy, sell, trade. We host tournaments. We sell all of the sleeves and deck boxes and all that stuff that comes along with people playing Magic. And we also do a little bit of tabletop gaming stuff, like role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, board games. We have a small selection of them as well. I've been doing this, let's see, in April, it will be 6 years.
Wow.
We'll have been in business for 6 years.
That's absolutely amazing, man. So I mean, I know you have, so how'd you get started into this, right? What made you want to do it? Who'd you go in it with? And then how long was the struggle, so to speak? Like, obviously, I'm sure you're still struggling and working hard, but just that part of like, man, I don't know if we're gonna make it or not.
So I was working in a pizza place on it before it, kind of like halfway doing managerial duties there in a pizza place, and before that, I had a store manager job with a major corporation, and like, it just came down to like, I don't want to work for anyone else. Like, honestly, that's what it came down to, is like, I want to be my own boss. I want to, be in control of my own money. I want to be in control of what makes me money. And Magic the Gathering as a like Magic the Gathering finance and that sort of stuff was what I knew the most about. And fortunately, I was in an area where I live, there isn't too much around in the form of like good game stores, and I just saw an opportunity and said, if there was going to be an opportunity to do this, this is the time, this is the place, I've got to make my move now. And then I did. Luckily, it has worked out. I do have a partner, and things have worked out great. We continue to grow every single year, and yeah, it's not easy. Owning a business, I mean, you are, especially a small business, you're the janitor, you're the secretary, you're the you're the night cleaning guy, you are the CFO, you are the guy that sorts all the cards, you're the guy that does all the inventory. Like, when you own a small business, you are every single part of that. So it's a lot of time and dedication. It's a lot of hard work. It can be very rewarding, both financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. It can be very, very rewarding.
Now, did you guys start off with the plan of what you wanted to offer and then kind of stuck to it, or has that been something that's kind of evolved throughout the years of like, we started with Magic and they're like, hey, we'll throw in D&D, hey, we'll do board games? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so definitely had the idea that like Magic is 100% something that, this area needs. This is something, we both know Magic is 100% going to be the backbone of this business. Along with Magic, there's a lot of other things. It could be comic books. It can be role-playing games. There's a lot of crossover. It could be video games. There's a lot of crossover there. Decided to start with tabletop games because, again, we saw an opening in the market for it. And our business has kind of evolved over the last 6 years and changing along with the markets. Board games when we first started were huge. Now they're kind of starting. They're kind of like on a downswing. Dungeons and Dragons is really getting amped up. So we've kind of moved with the times and ebbs and flows in both of those areas. But Magic has always been the backbone and core of the business and always continues to grow.
So Magic has it's actually kind of funny that you talked about the tabletop version, because Magic obviously has gone through a big evolution in the last about year and a half with the release of Magic Arena and them trying to push for esports now, and with all the changes to competitive play, which is kind of funny because Eternal has experienced similar changes in competitive play. How has that and the lack of the change to MSRP and all this stuff. I don't want to get too into depth because obviously we're still at Eternal Podcast, but like, so all those things that's happened with Eternal, I've seen on Reddit and things like that, some outcries for store owners and stuff like that. How's all that affected your store? Without getting into too much personal work, because obviously that's your inner working, but.
Yeah, no, it definitely affects us. When Wizards says, hey, go play this thing, don't go to your store and play. Play this thing that we put out, or Wizards, signs the deal with Walmarts and Amazons and says, well, we're not going to sell directly to local game stores anymore. We want to sell to these big corporations because it makes us more money. And I understand all of these decisions as a business, but many of the decisions over the last year, 2 years has kind of moved away from the local game store from Wizards' perspective. Mm-hmm. Us specifically, we are in a very, very good situation we're diversified enough. We focus on singles as opposed to like Wizard supplied sealed product for a majority of our income and a majority of our profits. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Wizards really hasn't touched, or that's a section of Magic the Gathering that's pretty much always going to be there. So we're diversified and good enough to capitalize on what we do well there and not be affected as much by these things that are kind of moving away from the LGS. Now I know to say it didn't affect us would just be flat out lying. I mean, I think even LSV on his stream with Channel Fireball said like 2019 was not a great year for game stores. And to be fair, with all of the sealed product and things that happened, it wasn't. But when you're able to diversify yourself enough, or what your strengths are, and you can still focus and are strong enough in other areas, you can kind of work through it and work past it. And we've been very, very fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the sealed product as far as crack open singles and stuff like that, because that was one of the things I was going to ask you, because that's essentially, it was interesting to me that Wizards of the Coast is slightly pulled away. Obviously they're a business, they need to make their money, but I feel like because the first 20 years of their existence has all been off of the back of local game stores, I feel like they need to remember their roots and still take care of the people that got them there, because at the end of the day, that's what Magic was supposed to be, like a card game to have people get together and play. So to completely eliminate, but obviously like you said, them at least selling boosters and stuff is still relevant. So at least I'm glad that they haven't completely pulled away from that. That being said, as far as your tournament structure goes, do you focus on limited? Do you focus on the Eternal formats? Are you more top heavy rewards? Are like for competitive players? Are you more kind of balanced F&M? Like, talk a little bit about that, just because I think it's super cool.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, sorry. Go. Someone else say something?
No, I just laughed. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. we actually don't focus too much on competitive play. By and large, competitive Magic the Gathering players don't spend a lot of money in their LGSs. They're the ones that are always trying to grind for value, and they're going to go the places that have the highest EV, right? Which equates to, I want to buy things for the lowest absolute possible price, and I don't want to sell anything unless I'm going to get the absolute highest price, which means the store ends up with very low profits, if there's any profit there at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really touch competitive play very much. So our tournament structures are very, very casual. Our FNMs cater to new players. Our FNMs cater to, the father-son team that wants to come in and play. The guy who wants to introduce his girlfriend to the game, and that's really, really served us well. We do a lot with Commander, which is, I think, probably the number one casual format. And if Commander players, they're always looking to build new decks. They're always looking for new things, and being able to cater to the casuals, to casual players, not only keep your profits high, but they're the ones that are always returning to the store. They're the ones who are your repeat customers, rather than just guy who's just traveling into town for a tournament is going to be there and then leave and not interact with the store. So competitively, we don't do much. We are absolutely catered to the casual.
Okay, yeah. So it's actually kind of funny because I feel like that's actually the strongest way to go. One, because you shined a great light on competitive players. So here in Dallas, we have Madness Games and Comics, which is home to the largest FNM. Wizards actually did an article on them, and they are 100% the same thing. They do a modern and a standard FNMs, and they have over 200 people for them, but they totally cater to casual, like pack per win type stuff, and they have some great tournaments with a lot of show ups. But yeah, it's one of the reasons why on my stream, I'm sure you do the same thing, where we kind of take the extra time to cater to newer players in Eternal, because getting those really positive first impressions are what's going to make people enjoy the game more and keep coming back. Absolutely. So two last things I'd like to mention, unless John or Alex, you guys got anything else to add, is do you have miniatures as well? Because I know you've mentioned a lot of tabletop. We talked about board games. We have card games. So actually, I guess that's a two-part question. Do you have things like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh as well? And then do you actually shoot three parts? Because I want to mention the Eternal game. If the Eternal tabletop to give you some points with Direwolf or hurt you, either or. I'm going to sabotage you. I'll edit it out if the answer is no. And then finally, like you and I had talked about this, but what's the thing that gives you the most joy as far as watching people in your store and stuff like that? So I guess let's go ahead and start with what other tabletops, like miniatures and Pokemon, the other card games, and then I'll follow up with the other questions.
So we don't do anything with other collectible card games. No Yu-Gi-Oh, no Pokemon, none of the ones that have come in and out of the years, Final Fantasy, Kaijudo, or anything like that. We strictly Magic the Gathering. And part of the reason for that is because I just don't know it. I have 23 going on 24 years of experience with Magic the Gathering. I have 0 with Pokemon. I would feel terrible if I'm trying to sell someone a card for their Pokemon deck and I have no idea what I'm talking about. I can talk about Magic all day long. I don't know anything about Pokemon. So it would just be, I'd be a fraud. I feel like a fraud essentially. Miniatures, I don't do anything with like 40K or anything like that. However, we do carry several different miniatures lines for Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's not required to play, but there's a lot of people who enjoy painting them or enjoy playing with them. So that we do carry a small selection of them. And that's actually something we just got into recently, about 6 months ago, when we've seen, an uptick in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's going really, really, really well. We'll probably be expanding our line here in a couple of months for more Dungeons and Dragons miniatures.
Oh, nice. And then Dungeons and Dragons, I'll just go ahead. That was a good segue, so we'll just do that. So that's what you told me offline is one of your favorite things about being a store owner, and your store in particular. So what about that just really works?
Oh, yeah. My favorite experience as a store owner, or as someone who's like teaching someone how to play a game, or someone who deals in games, my favorite thing is when something clicks and someone gets it. I love seeing someone sit down to play Magic who's never played it before, and then all of a sudden, oh, the light bulb goes off, and you just see the big smile on your face, and you see the wheels start turning, and you see the connections being made. I think that is amazing. Same thing with Dungeons and Dragons, which is my most favorite thing to run in store. When you see someone come up with something off the wall and cool that they do, and they just have this big grin on their face, and they're just really enjoying the game and getting an experience that they've never had before. When someone talks about Dungeons and Dragons, it's not, oh, I was playing this game and my character did this. No, they say I did this or we did this. It's, they're putting themselves there, and when you have that personal connection and that personal enjoyment out of these experiences, it's the best. It's the best.
That's awesome, man. That sounds so rewarding.
I'm getting goosebumps right now. That's cool.
I got a big smile on my face. That's so cool.
Now Alex is gonna run to the store tomorrow and grab D&D and be like, all right, kids, guess what we're doing today?
No, what I'm like, I play every other week. I play D&D like for years.
I'm so jealous.
And yeah, so like Nick saying, do you run a game in your store, Nick?
I do. We actually just started up Adventures League yesterday and today. We had done several like learn to play sessions or some one shots, things like that, but we just now starting yesterday and today got into the Adventures League, which is the Wizards of the Coast organized play for it. Nice. And I ran both the games yesterday and today.
That's awesome.
One of the perks of being the owner.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so last question. We'll move on from this segment. I'm sure some people fast forward and other people are hopefully intently listening like I am. Like, I'm grinning. I think this is super exciting. But
yeah,
the Eternal Tabletop, what is it? Something of the Throne? Chronicles of the Throne.
Yeah, Chronicles of the Throne.
Do you have it?
I'm going to lose points with Direwolf Digital. No, my business does not carry the game. I have it personally. I tried it out at Gen Con last year. My wife and I did. I personally enjoyed it. I think it's a great 2-player game. It's a deck building game for those that don't know. So it's similar to things like Dominion or Legendary. But I think it's a great 2-player game. I think the combat aspect of it is a nice addition to deck building games. As far as my business is concerned, I don't see us selling enough copies of it or profits on it are high enough to warrant carrying it in stock. So don't kill me, Direwolf. Don't kill me, Renegade Studios.
All right, fair enough. Hey, I appreciate your honesty and your candor. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this section of the show. I do want to throw in a little snippet real quick on that, not just because we have Enrouch. I'm a firm believer in this as well, but your local game store is the lifeblood in their community. Just straight up, it gives you a place to talk with people that are like-minded. It gives you a place to get together with friends and play the games that you enjoy. And it's a business. So, if you have the choice of spending a couple extra dollars at your LGS or saving some money online, or granted, now if you're buying from a LGS online, like that's fine as well. Because actually, I think both the biggest stores here in Dallas, both offer online stores. But if you can, support your LGS any way you can. Definitely. Case point, Enrouch. Like I would be friends with Enrouch going to a store. So, it's not one of those things where you're just checking out with a random cashier. Like, these people, that he's going to know your deck. He's going to know your character. So when you can, take the extra effort, spend a couple extra dollars to support your local store one way or another. It really goes a long way towards helping them, because at the end of the day, it's really helping the community as a whole. So, yeah.
Right on, Jedi.
Say something along those lines too. It's like growing up, the comic book / magic shop was always like the safe place someone could go to. So that's awesome that you recognize the need in your community, because we need a place to let our nerd flag fly safely and without judgment. So that's awesome. I'm glad it's working out for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is. I'm happy to serve the community.
Yeah, and the one thing I have noticed too is that honestly, a lot of stores, believe it or not, at least all the ones I've been to, seriously, even the ones that are slightly quote unquote overpriced or whatnot, they're still pretty honest about it. I've had plenty of store owners be like, hey, like this game's not really that good, to be honest with you, or like, hey, if you're into this game, you should try this game. Actually, this one's way better. And so like that slight touch of realism and honesty, I think goes a real long way in building rapport and lets you feel a lot more comfortable that when they tell you like, hey, this, like this game's $120, but it's because, I paid $100 for it. Like I'm only making $20 on it, type thing. I mean, that's probably getting a little specific, but it really is. I don't know. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. So that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about it, because I can't remember a store I've gone into, even when I've been traveling, or like maybe I was going to a regional, or maybe I was going to just the nearest PTQ was a town over or whatnot, and I went, and I felt like every store I've ever been to, for the most part, I would probably complain more about the slight disorganization before I would of the caring and consideration and the welcoming of the store, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
So, but all right, that's my 2 cents, guys. I'm off my soapbox. So let's move on. Let's finally get to some Eternal. Let's finally get to some limited play. Nick, start us off, man. Like, what are your favorite archetypes to draft in this format?
So in the current draft format, I pretty much like, well, my absolute favorite is like the Busted Yetis deck, where you get like multiple Slope Sergeants, a Punter, and I don't care if it's Skycrag or Feln. And I'm really only Feln because like you get the good shadow removal. That's my absolute favorite deck to draft. However, I usually find myself in either 3 colors or 2 color combination of the Kerendon colors, which would be Justice, Time, and Shadow. So some combination of those 3 colors.
Yeah, and you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I don't know if you listen to Farming Eternal or not. You don't have to answer that one, but they have their 7-win spreadsheet, and they've talked about where those 3 colors are really starting to kind of take of their own and pull away from the other 2. It just is. Shadow has the best removal, and then obviously we've already established that Time and Justice have the more powerful cards in general in this format. So it doesn't surprise me, even when the flip of the pack order for it to kind of get there. So you mentioned Slope Sergeant, and that's one of the things that's been changed in this format when they updated the format, flipping the packs to curated, Fox curated, and they added Slope Sergeant to it. So talk a little bit on how you attack the draft portion of this new format, because I'll be honest with you, the one time that I wasn't going to draft Yetis, like I was just like, all right, let's make a note of how Yetis works. Like we had 6 Slope Sergeants passed to us, and I was just not in that deck. I didn't want to commit early enough because I've just had too many bad runs of trying to go for those high synergy decks. Mm-hmm. That's why I've never been able to draft the Wizened Crone deck. I've seen it, I've lost to it, I've won a bit, but I've never been able to draft it. So how do you attract the actual drafting portion of it?
So I tend to stay open probably a little bit longer than I should, and I tend to value cards that would keep me open. So your cards like Bannermen or cards with single colors. My first couple of picks, I tend to just try and take the most powerful card in the pack. My final deck, you want to have cards that are just very, very powerful, whether it's removal or a bomb rare or something like that. And then try to see what the open color is when you start getting around pick 4, pick 5. One thing that I like to do is keep in mind what the most powerful commons are in packs 2 and 3. And because that's what ends you up in Kerendon colors most of the time, is because the powerful commons in packs 2 and 3 are there. So your curated packs are so big and so deep because the card pool is so large. You can't reasonably expect certain cards in certain factions from those packs, but you can from packs 2 and pack 3. So you can reasonably expect to maybe see like your draw strengths, your Longtail Cavalries, your Marsh Dragons, your Immortalize, your Grodov's Favored, your Spiketail Kirans. You can expect to see those, and that can lean you into those, knowing that, all right, I'm going to value Time a little bit higher because it's going to give me access to these cards in packs 2 and pack 3. I'm going to value Shadow a little bit higher because I'm no Marsh Dragons available in packs 2 and pack 3. Where the opposite side of it, where the Yetis thing is it's weighing something with really, really high power level or really, really high synergy. And it's tough to make the commitment. And most of the time it's just kind of a feel thing. You know what? I'm feeling this here, because you don't want to commit to something like Slope Sergeant over, let's say, an Eviscerate, right? Like it's so much easier to take the eviscerate and be non-committal. This card's going to make all of my shadow decks, whereas like I need work to get the Slope Sergeant, so it's very tough to make that commitment. It really is a spur of the moment thing. Like I feel like drafting Yetis right now. Let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, and what are some of the payoffs that you're looking for to feel like you got there in packs 2 and 3 when it comes to Yetis?
With Yetis, one of the big ones is the 2-drop Evangel is also a Yeti. So that not only gives you a cheap unit that you can punt with the punter, to a cheap unit that you can help bond with Slope Sergeant. But there's also the Muster Yeti, I think, is a big one. When you're able to like filter through your deck with your Slope Sergeants, you can kind of construct these things where you're discarding Icy Gaze in addition to playing an attachment on something, even if it's something just a simple 1-cost weapon or something like that, where you can trigger the Muster on the what is it, Yeti Traditionalist, yes, and make it into a 5/5 overwhelm. Those are really your payoffs. Most of your good Yeti stuff is going to come in packs 1 and 4, which is very, very different from most other archetypes.
Now, obviously, the cards have to be in the pack, and sometimes it just happens. Like for example, today I think we were 100% to be correct to be in Praxis because all the Praxis cards were open. But we didn't get some of the major payoffs, and I think that was just the fact that they were in the cards. So aside from the cards not being in the packs, in your experiences, when you see the Yeti deck quote unquote open in pack 1, how often do you feel like you're gonna get paid off? Like you personally, do you feel like you're gonna get paid off in pack 4?
So if I see something like a punter show up like pack 4 or pick 4, like I am slamming that and moving in. If you're seeing it that late, that tells me Primal's open, and you don't even really need too many synergistic Yetis to get there. Just a couple of them, a snow slinger, a couple of them in pack 2 and 3, maybe a single Slope Sergeant. You don't need a lot of them to get there because like Jotun Punter's power level is so high. I think when you see, like pick 6, pick 7 Slope Sergeants, when you see the pick 4, you sometimes even pick 3 punter, I think you can reasonably expect to see the payoffs in pack 4. A lot of your quote unquote payoffs is just getting a critical mass of, 2-drop Yetis, getting your Snow Slingers, getting your Mischief Yetis. And a lot of those tend to go pretty late in packs 1 and pack 4. So you can kind of reap the benefits of getting past these cards that are going to be really, really good in your deck, but being able to get them later on in the pack.
Okay. And so from the sound of it, you valuing 2-drops so highly, the goal is to try to run out those Slope Sergeants on 4 then roughly?
Yeah, usually turn 4. That's typically when it happens, because you get your 2-drop out. Your turn 3 is spent like removing or maybe playing another 2-drop, and then Slope Sergeant coming down on turn 4.
Okay, right on, nice. And then you said you favor the Feln version versus the Skycrag version.
I think both are fine. I pick those two because Feln has a lot of removal. Like when you're playing out your early game, you like turn 2 Yeti, turn 3 some other unit, maybe a Blood Wolf, maybe a Yeti into Slope Sergeant, and then turn 5 you can start playing your Eviscerates, maybe a Fell Ritual if you're lucky enough to get those, and that can clear the way for you to attack with your Yetis. Skycrag works the same way. Skycrag has a few more Yeti units with cards like Blurry Chaser and Weisencrone, but a little bit less of the removal. You get Conflag. I think Streets of Flame is in the format as well, but the game plan is the same. I don't really favor Feln over Skycrag at all. I think both are fine, but it's really just pairing them with the best removal.
All right.
Does either rendition go into like the sub theme for that, which like would be the damage matters or the discard matters at all? Or does either deck like go into that sub theme more than the other?
The damage matters one in Skycrag can definitely, because there's a lot of overlap with Weisencrone specifically. You don't go too much into like the discard matters of Feln. Like you're not really wanting to play your Malaises Fervent Siphoner's fine. The Sunset Priest is fine. If any of the discard matters stuff, you're looking at picking up things like late Icy Gazes, maybe a Faceless One, Fell Rock if you just happen to get it, because your Slope Sergeant is letting you discard cards, getting those free cards off of it, being able to cast those cards for free, but not too much of like the milling your opponent with the Raven. The 4-drop Yeti, or the 4-drop flyer is really, really good. What is it? It's an 05, and then it gets +2 at the end of turn if someone discards a card. Mm-hmm. That one's really good with Slope Sergeants. So that one's pretty good, but not too much other in the discard synergies.
Okay. And then how strong, I mean, I guess it's kind of a moot point, but I was going to say how strong is Immortalize in this kind of a deck, but I guess it's just straight value in any deck, period. But I was thinking of like getting back a Slope Sergeant or whatever.
So you can like set up an Immortalize with like, you can discard these cards off of your Slope Sergeant knowing that you have Immortalize, and you don't have to worry too much like, oh man, I really want to keep the 6-drop in my hand, but you know, I got to discard it so I can have things to play now. You can, with Slope Sergeant, you're able to discard those things, or excuse me, with Immortalize, you're able to discard these cards early on in the game, knowing that you have a way to get them back in the late game. But Immortalize is just going to be good in any Shadow deck that you're playing. It's one of the best commons in packs 2 and 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
Alex, you recently got a 7-win deck. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was very fun. 7-1 Praxis deck with splashing of 1 Permafrost with like 3 ways to get blue. And I guess I just want to say, I was going to ask Nick if he falls more into the red-blue than the red-purple, red-black, or I always say, but because I think red is underdrafted right now a little bit. So I'm seeing a lot of good red cards going really late, you know? So that's what happened with that deck, I think. Just the Praxis was wide open.
Yeah, I think Fire is it's this weird cycle where I think Fire is probably, in my opinion, is the worst color in the format. It would be Primal the way things were set up before, but I think the Yeti synergies, at least to me, push Primal up a little bit higher. But Fire still does have some very, very strong commons. But if Fire is the underdrafted archetype and everyone's taking Kerrigan cards, then you want to be in Fire. And you can get like late Conflags, late champion grapplers, and be in a good Fire deck. I don't have anything against Fire. It's not my preferred faction, but you can absolutely get really good Fire decks.
Yeah, I don't think any color is so bad that if it's open that you don't want to be in that color.
No, it's not like Primal was before the change. Like I think before you just did not want to be in Primal at all, but now with the change, I think all of the factions are definitely draftable and can have a good deck in any color combination.
That's actually such a good point about Fire, because I think John, I'm not sure if you were there, Alex, but I know John, you were there for this, where one of the drafts I did on stream, I forgot what it was, but we were in kind of Fire in pack 1. And then pack 2, we just kept getting Fire. And then pack 3, we opened up a Shingani captain. And I remember that one. I looked at the deck. I'm like, how much Fire do we have? And I looked, and I think we were literally like 3 Justice cards, an Artisan, or like 3 Justice cards. I think it was like a Stalwart and 2 Artisans. And I was like, oh, we're all Fire. Okay, well, I guess if there's ever a captain deck, this is it. And it was just literally like, it wasn't even that I was favoring Fire. It just happened like the good Fire cards were in the pack, and I was like, cool, guess we're just going this way.
Super open, and yeah, you were getting past all the good Fire cards.
So seeing like last pick, the 6/5 Oni that lets you draw all the
weapon back, Burning Claw.
That card's great.
Last pick one of those. It's like Fire's open, you know.
That Burning Claw just makes your Warbrush Onis or your Oni Attackermen so much better, because then you're like, yeah, sure, I'll slap a Warhorn or whatever on it and just swing, and as soon as my opponent deals with it, I'm going to get it back. Like, yeah, Burning Claw I think is a very solid card, and the body... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, really ties the room together.
I like what you did there. Nice. Nick, a couple other things. So Topaz Drake, what do you feel about that guy? The 6/3 flying charge Skycrag for 7 dragon.
It's fine. That's
oh man, that's great. I guess it's a playable. All right, just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
It sure has a lot of competition in this format in particular.
Yes. Yeah, like so one, you have to be in Skycrag, which is not one of my favorite archetypes to be in. It's competing with the 7-drop that also permafrost something when you reach mastery, which I think is better. It still dies to most of the common fast removal. It's playable, I guess. If you have a bunch of Cindermaw Totas, like it's okay, but I'm really looking to replace that card.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I just once again, Hats on Lamps had talked about it a little bit, and then we were in a position today where we didn't get that much of a payoff, and so I actually ended up running it. But yes, sure enough, I played the one time I played it, the opponent smashed it with Streets of Flame, so I thought it was kind of funny. Yeah, the what's another issue? Let me see. What's another card that kind of is somewhat back and forth on? How do you feel about the sacrifice decks? The like Stone Scar Sack and stuff like that. Primarily, obviously, dragons, but how do you feel about that? Because I personally like that deck. I think it's quite powerful and at the very least, a ton of fun to play.
Yeah.
Where are you on it?
I think Cindermaw Tota is a pretty decent card. And obviously its value goes up the more combusts you get and the more like Marsh Dragons you get. I think Marsh Dragon is one of the best commons in the set. I think it's debatable if it's better than Immortalize, and in some cases, depending on how Pack 1 goes, or Packs 1 and 2, there are definitely times when I have taken Marsh Dragon over Immortalize and believe it's 100% the right choice. I think Combust is a pretty decent card, especially when you have things like Warhorn making a bunch of little 2/2s that are fodder. 2/2s get outclassed pretty easily in this format, so you have a lot of these extra, dorks standing around that you can throw combust at people. I think the sacrifice decks can be good. I'm not looking to get into them, and even if I'm in Stone Scar, I'm not necessarily 100% going to be all in on these sacrifice synergies. But I think that you can have a few of those sacrifice synergies in a good Stone Scar deck, sure.
Okay, and then 2 other questions I'd like to pick your brain about. First, with the switch to obviously the format has changed because all these dual color synergy based or the faction distinguishing cards, right? Like Longhorn, Artisan, and things like that. So how much do you value these cards when you see, like, let's say for example, right now you're Primal, right? You're Primal Pack 1, and then you go into Pack 2 and you're seeing maybe 2 Intrepid Longhorns. Like how much weight does that have for you to audible into Combray, or are you just stick to the path?
So if I'm like Elysian or Huru in Pack 1, like if I already have good cards of one of those colors, I think switching into Longhorn is very good, especially since there's a lot of good Justice cards in Packs 2 and Pack 3. So I wouldn't have any hesitation to switch into a Longhorn deck if I'm already in one of those colors. Now, if I'm in Feln or Skycrag or something like that, I'm probably staying away from Longhorn.
Okay. Yeah, and I've seen both sides of the coin. I've seen some coins where it's exactly what you said, where we have maybe some Justice or maybe some time and Artisan is open or Longhorn is open. And then there have been other times where I'm past Feln in Pack 1 and 4, and then I'm past, Combray in Packs 2 and 3. It's just like,
Yeah.
But, it is what it is sometimes. And the other question I have for you is, do you prefer to have the Evangels for one of your primary colors or for one of your splash colors?
Oh, that's a good question. I think primary mostly because it makes them more castable. If you are like, if you draw, let's say you're splashing like a Conflag or a Streets of Flame or something like that, and you have Shavka Evangel in your deck, on your splash color, if you draw your Evangel, sure, you got your one influence off of the Fate, but it still is likely not enough to be able to play that card. So you still have this dead card in your hand. If you have discard synergies, and we're back to Slope Sergeant, something like that again, if you have ways of discarding these extra cards, or maybe a merchant where you can trade them off, I don't mind having the Evangels as your splash colors, but mainly I'm looking at them for your main colors.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much the consensus of this podcast as a whole, where occasionally if I need to, I'll run them for the splash, but I think we all prefer to have them for our primary and then just do the splash. It just cleans up our colors, and we can still play it, and then we could be a little more splashy with our actual power base. So, yep. John, do you have anything to add for Nick before we move on? I think that's all the questions I have.
No, those are great questions. I think we gotta end the show at some point, so let's keep it rolling.
Fair. Alex, you have anything else to add for Enrouch?
No, I think that was pretty good analysis right there of the change.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So I'm going to be the only one fanboying on the podcast. Absolutely
well,
great.
I asked about fire, right?
Yeah, way to contribute, buddy. Appreciate it. No, I'm just messing with you. All right, cool. Sweet. All right, guys. So I think that's going to be enough for the limited talk. Like I said, just kind of I wanted to pick Nick's brain about absolutely everything. So you guys are getting a variety show today. But we talked about limited, so that checked that box. Is there any last alibis as far as interactions or cards or anything in particular that you think you might be a little higher on than the rest of the community there, Nick?
As far as like pick orders and stuff?
Anything, like maybe some interaction that you really like or something like that. Just any tip that might help somebody.
I think Longtail Cavalry is way better than everyone thinks that it is. I think that card's actually just like kind of insane.
Really?
In limited?
You think people have gone down on it? Because I mean, there is a critical mass of it. Don't get me wrong. You can only have so many 5-cost 2/1s in your deck, but I think I've always been high on that card.
I think most people are high on it, and I think it needs to be even higher than people are being high on it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Break it down for us.
I think the card's insane. I think that most games of limited, unless you're playing against like the absolute busted Oni deck, or most games start out the same way, where everyone's kind of playing 2/2s, maybe a 2/3, and then like around turn 4, turn 5, the board just kind of stalls. Like everything just kind of stops. And the game switches gears to the point where last flyer standing wins. And Longtail Cavalry, so you're like saving your removal to kill their flyer, or like trade off your flyer, their flyer. So like whoever has the last flyer wins the game. And I think Longtail Cavalry being not only a flying attacker or blocker by itself, but when it dies, being able to jump something else. So you're getting like 2 of the exact card that you want at that stage in the game in one. I think the card is just absolutely insane for limited. I think it's one of the best things. And even if you're rating it highly, you should probably rate it higher than what you are.
All right. There you go. Hot take from Enrouch, the one and only. Sweet. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Well, real quick. So that's a card you find a little bit underrated. Is there one that you could say is like overrated? People shouldn't be playing?
Oh boy.
Sorry to put you on the spot. If you don't have an answer, that's all right.
The only one that comes to mind and Cass and I actually, we had a very short discussion in my stream about this card, was Era's Elite, the 1/4 the 1/4 your decimate stuff is free. I do not like that card and think it is, I don't want to say unplayable, but borderline unplayable.
Wow.
For the exact same reason that Longtail Cavalry is so good, is because these boards just kind of stall out. But the thing about a 1/4 in this format is there's so many 2/2s and 2/3s that have mastery on them. your opponent can still bash into it and they're still getting extra value to it. It's not trading with anything. It is stalling the ground and getting you to a later portion of the game. But the fact that things like Spike Tail exist, the fact things like Blood Wolf exist, it just like your opponent is still getting value even though they're just bashing their 2/2 into your 1/4. I don't think that is a place where you want to be. I think you want to be playing those units that can trade in the early turns. I think you want to be playing, your 2/3s, your 2/2s. I would value 2/2 no ability over the 1/4, even if the decimate matters in your deck.
I was about to ask. So even if the decimate matters, you think you should pass on that?
Yeah, unless you've got like 6 draw strengths in your deck, and a cast into shadows and something else, because you don't really want to be decimating on your early turns, and even if you're going to decimate your draw strengths on the early turns, you're like trading your draw strength for one of their 2 or 3 drops instead of saving it for the later game when you're going to be able to trade with their larger units. And in the later game, the decimate is less punishing than if you're going to use it in the early game. So unless you have like 10 decimate cards and 6 of them are draw strengths, I'm really not looking to play the elite in the deck.
I'm right there with you on that. I think that's a good choice for that discussion.
Like, which means pretty much it's unplayable unless you're like totally desperate for a 2-drop. Basically,
Agree.
Yeah, the 2-drop slot is very aggressive in this format for sure. I often find myself cutting 2-drops. I think it's kind of interesting because it's actually funny. I think that card was a little bit higher before when it was a lot easier. I don't know about you guys, but in my experiences here lately, I've seen a lot less immortalizes and draw strength. It used to be a point in time where I could easily get 3 to 5 in a deck, believe it or not, and now I feel like if I get 1, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't know if you guys have had it superior, unless if I'm Combray or Praxis, then I see like 8 immortalizes. But other than that,
yeah, that's kind of lined up with my experience too. Although in our, today on your stream in the chat draft, we, chat passed, I think 3 draw strengths in packs 2 and 3. I was like, ugh. But yeah.
I do see the value in that card when you could have, like Enroute said, when you have 4 or 5 draw strengths, because it's so easy to leave 1 power up, and when you have that many, you're a little more willing to trade them. Plus you're getting the bonus of, if you get that plus, essentially spread across 3 units +3/+3 to your deck for free, like it just seems so much more easier of a trade. So I could see some value, and then obviously just immortalizing, decimating immortalize is just great value. So I think those are the reasons. It's more of a synergy card, but I agree. I think that card, I was already not very high on it, but you're totally right. Especially with a format with Mastery, 1/4s are way more of a liability than they are anything else. So
just don't, decimate your immortalize on your Longtail Cavalry. Then you're going to end up on that other podcast.
Oh, thank God. I was going to say, wait, I'm like, I've punted quite a bit, but I've not punted that yet.
That was nicely done, John.
Thank you.
All right, fair enough. Well played, friend. Well played. Shout out to the Misplay and Farming Eternal fellow podcast. So wait, which podcast is not around anymore? Is it Unexpected Results?
Yeah, I don't believe that those are being recorded anymore.
Oh, wow.
I sure haven't seen any episodes.
So we're down to 4 podcasts? Wow.
I saw Sonny talking about reinvigorating his. So maybe there'll be another one cropping up, but.
So it's just a marathon race. Yeah. If we just stick around long enough, we'll be the growing social media force in Eternal. Awesome. All right. So speaking of groups and friends and competitive play and stuff like that, Enrach was the quote unquote spokesperson for the Barbarian Camp, which is the new up and coming Eternal team. And I say new and upcoming, but it's got a lot of veterans. A lot of people have put up some very good stats. I really don't know where to start here en route. So if you just want to kind of spitball it, take over and tell us about the team a little bit. I'd love to hear about it. Let people know just about what you guys are about, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a member of the Barbarian Camp. We are the newest competitive Eternal team. What does that mean? Well, we're just a group of people who have all gotten together and we kind of play test for upcoming tournaments. All of us have very common goals as far as what we want to do competitively in this game. And we are all working together to come to meet those goals, to hopefully meet those goals. I guess what's
the time commitment that you guys, as far as being on a team, what kind of time commitment are you guys looking at, maybe for your team in particular?
So we it sounds like when we say, oh, we're a competitive team and we do these things, it's really not that big of a super huge time commitment. We share a lot of ideas together. Whenever we're playing in games, we kind of share our experiences with each other. Here's a new deck, let's try it. What do you think? Let's tune it. Let's work on this. But it's not a gigantic time commitment. Like, okay, well, this week we have to meet on this day, and this day to all test a format. You're working on this deck. You're working on this. It's really not like that. We're all pretty casual about it, really. And everyone just has the same common goals. We want to get to Worlds. Many of the members on this team did compete in the World Championships last year, and we're all just working together as friends, as a team, to meet that goal for everyone.
Do you guys have a how? Oh man, I had it in my head, and then as soon as you stopped talking, I drew a blank. So, do you guys have like a running spreadsheet? Do you guys talk over voice? How do you guys share information, generally speaking? Oh, I remember the question. So, go finish that one out. Go ahead.
We have a Discord, and we've got a lot of different channels in there for different formats. There are channels for specifically sharing decks. We have channels for drafts where we help each other out with draft picks. We have just fun channels where we talk about normal, daily, everyday life. And everyone puts in as much effort as they want to, or as they can. As we get closer and closer to tournaments, we tend to be a little bit more active and a little bit more organized. We do have spreadsheets for sharing data as far as matchups. Okay, well, I played 10 matches today. I'm going to log these in the spreadsheet, and it'll keep win rates. We have notes for each individual game. Maybe something interesting happened. Maybe something specific happened that caused a matchup to go a different way. And we have all of these things because as a team, when you are able to collect data at a higher rate, when we have 12 people all inputting data as opposed to just one person trying to do all of this themselves, you're able to come to conclusions and adapt at a much, much faster rate.
So you mentioned multiple decks. How tight on a deck are you guys? Like, as you get closer to a turn, I mean, obviously when you're a little ways away, you guys test multiple decks and everyone does their thing. But how often, and I know you're a new team, but how often are you guys pushing for like, okay, look, this is the deck that we think has the highest win percentage. Let's all work on this and we all play this deck because we think it's the best deck. Like, is that kind of like one of the motivating factors, or is it still pretty like, hey, you guys play what you want and, XYZ is going to play this deck and ABC is going to play this deck, et cetera, et cetera?
Ideally, we would like to get it narrowed down to one, maybe two decks that we all feel that we can all agree upon is the best deck. It doesn't always work out that way. So for the first ECQ this season, Eric 9099, if you've been playing Eternal at all ever, you know who he is. He's one of the best players in the game. He's an incredible deck builder, incredible deck tuner. He identified pretty early for the first ECQ that Xenon is likely the best deck, or is likely one of the top contenders. And time after time, we would throw stuff at him. We would throw new decks at him, and he would just crush everyone with this deck. And so pretty early, we identified that this is the best deck to be on. This is where you want to be. Let's all work together to try and tune this as best as we can. For the last ECQ, which was throne format, things worked a little bit differently. We still had the same common goal of, early on, let's try out a bunch of different things. Let's try to get a metagame established and narrow down our choices. We weren't able to narrow it down to a single deck. In the ECQ, we myself and I think Collector and GT were on Praxis. Cranky and M Gallop and Eric were on Spellcrag. We had a couple people on FJS. um, it was a much wider, because we didn't get it narrowed down to what we felt the best deck was. And so then it just became everyone trying to play what they're most comfortable with, that they felt was good within the meta game.
Okay.
So it doesn't, we always have a common goal, but sometimes it doesn't always get to the place where you ideally would like it to get to.
Gotcha. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because this is the question I wanted to ask when you first were breaking down the team. Is the fact that you guys all have long story short, was the fact that you're more of a casual team, as far as, you're not like set schedule diehards, even though you all have the same goals. Is that one of the things that drew you guys together to create this team? We're like, hey, we're going to be competitive, we want to win, but we're not going to make this another job type thing.
Kind of. Now, this is you guys might not even know the story, but it's kind of out there. Darkest Hour, or Dorkest Owl on Twitch, he actually is the person who formed the team. And this goes way back to even before Worlds last year. This would have been in like the Masters Challenge and before the ECQ Showdown. I've worked with Darkest Hour before. I consider him a very good friend, and he's a very, very accomplished Magic player and very accomplished Eternal player. And it was him. This was been prior to Worlds last year, saying like, and he was qualified for Worlds. He just said, I want to get some of the best people in the game, whom I respect as players, who I feel like I could work with well, and get everyone together to bounce ideas off of and share each other, not be super, super committal hardcore schedule to a team, but like we're all have common goals, we all have things we want to accomplish in this game. We can all benefit by being in the same room, so to speak, together. And it kind of carried over from last season into this season, where he invited a few other people in. So he actually kind of formed this team all by himself. Darkest Hour, he handpicked all of us and said, hey, let's, I respect all of you. Let's get together. Let's do something. Let's be the best team in Eternal. Let's do this. And then he actually, he had other commitments, Magic commitments, real life commitments, to where he actually kind of just had to bow out and said, hey, I'm not able to put as much effort into this as all of you are. And so he kind of took a step back, and we all remained together on the same team.
Wow. It's funny how things like that work out.
Yeah. So that's the background as far as, how we came to be, how we got formed. I feel like there was a second part of your question that I don't remember exactly right now.
No, that was pretty much it. Just the biggest question was just the fact that if you guys came together because of we're all really skilled guys, but we don't want to make this a job thing, and you answered that. I think it was great. John, I know you're probably the more competitive one out of the three of us. Just time constraints and all the content I create doesn't allow me. Plus, I'm at best a slightly minusculely like hair above average player. So, do you have any questions for En-Route as far as team, general team questions and stuff like that, or do you want to see if he divulges any secrets?
No, I'm not going to try and bait him or anything like that. No, but I'm. It's really cool to hear you talk about this, because like I said before we started earlier, me and a few other friends have kind of done a similar thing, except none of us are accomplished in any way. So we have no history of being good or anything, but we have same goals. Well, now we have some some accomplishments, but we sure didn't start off that way. And it sounds like your experience with your team is actually pretty similar to ours. So that makes me really happy to hear that we're doing some things right, at least.
Yeah. In the end, like I said, we're all just a group of people who enjoy playing the game for the most part, and all want to succeed and do well. And if we feel like we have a better chance of doing well as a group working together than each individually, that's what it is. We just all want to get better, and we all want to perform at the highest level that we possibly can. Let's do it as a group.
Yeah, that's really cool. I do have, I guess, a question. Do some people in your team have certain roles? Are some only builders and some only tuners or anything like that?
No one has any specific roles. However, there are people who are more skilled at some areas than other ones. M Gallop is a perfect example. M Gallop top 8'd or top 4'd the constructed Masters Challenge last year.
Oh, wow.
They have a couple ECQ top 64s. They just got top 16 at the last ECQ. However, and all of these are like constructed accolades. M Gallop is a draft master. Okay.
Right. That's where I see him normally.
So if isomorphic is like draft master 1, M Gallop is 1A.
There you go.
Like,
okay.
They are that good. And so whenever anyone wants draft advice, it's just, hey, help me out with this pick, help me out with this deck. They are very, 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 very that. So they kind of took on the lead role as like, lead drafter, come to me with your questions, things like this. I can help you with this. Cranky Panda is an amazing deck builder. He plays a ton, but he's always coming up with new things that are brewing. And it doesn't matter how crazy or weird it is. He's willing to try out anything. He's just an amazing, amazing deck builder. He has a passion for deck building. And I think but he's a very, very competent player as well. It's like, don't take anything away from him as a player, but those sort of roles and your passions can definitely come out in certain people. You're not assigned anything per se, but everyone does have their strengths of maybe one of these areas that they are better at than others.
Very cool. What about what would you say about yourself in that regard?
So I think it's the opening line of Rounders, where if you can't identify, the mark at the table, if you can't identify the fish at the table, it's you. Well, that's how I feel about this team. Is I am definitely the worst player on this team. I feel like I am surrounded by greatness, and I'm like lagging behind everyone. I think that I have a decent eye for. I mean, if you're putting me on the spot to like talk up myself,
because this podcast hasn't been about you and any means.
I think I have a decent eye for identifying play patterns and scripts of games and being able to adjust or tune decks or adjusting your own play patterns to either counteract your opponents or put yourself in better positions in games.
Yes. That's one of the things I appreciate about your stream and why I enjoy watching you. One of the reasons why you're so good with Yetis, by the way, shout out to Cranky Panda. I totally piloted, thanks to you showing it on your stream and Cranky Panda for making the deck. I took that to the Tuesday Night Eternal Invitational, and that's what helped me make it to the top 4. So shout out to Cranky Panda. But yes, and Rouch, Nick, you definitely, people talk a lot about, it's very hard to find those 100 or 95% plays, but you are absolutely amazing at figuring out what you're playing to your outs and making those 80-85% play lines, and it pays off, man. You really see it when you're piloting the decks like Yetis, where you're not winning by a landslide. You're not completely decimating your opponent. You're winning by doing 20 damage and then inching in those last 5 points of damage. And you're so good at that. So I will back you up 100%. That is definitely one of your stronger suits.
Yeah, I learned a ton from watching this guy. Y'all should all be watching him.
You guys talk me up way too much. Now my next stream, there's going to be more viewers and they're just going to watch me punt and get tilted and yell and swear the entire time.
That being said,
2 or 3 more viewers, maybe.
That being said, Nick, I'll tell you right now, when I've made some sweet plays, I get like 1 follow, and then when I punt to high heck, I get like 6 subs. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's entertaining.
Yeah, it's man, at least you do it, because I'll tell you what, like every once in a while I get lucky. There's actually something I just posted, a short video that I posted on YouTube, because my opponent was crushing us and just emote spamming the living daylights out of us and chat was getting tilted, and I was like, well, we'll play it out. And by luck, man, that 20% chance to win play came up, man, and they top deck not a removal spell, and we got there, and chat actually blew up because they were like, that's right, karma. So it was great. But I feel I feel like your stream is definitely a lot of that. Man, I don't know, Alex, is there anything else you want to add about Constructed? I know I could probably ask a bunch more questions, but we are getting up there in time. I don't want to move along. There's still a couple other things I want to talk about. So is there anything else, John or Alex, you guys have any closing statements for Nick as far as team and Constructed goes?
Well, I mean, I guess he answered, John asked it, who was like the limited specialist on there. And then I had like a silly question. How'd you come up with your name? Do you guys like vote on it, or who picked that?
So back before Worlds last year, when it was just like 6 of us in the Discord together, and I brought like, hey, let's make this an official thing. Let's get a team name and everything. And I pitched the Barbarian Camp as a name, and everyone's just like, it's close to Worlds. Let's not make this official, anything like that. And it just became an like an ongoing joke, like a running joke, where just like every so often I would refer to us as the Barbarian Camp. And even into this team, we would been working together and talking for probably a couple of months, probably 2 months before we actually like came out and said, yes, we're an official team and whatnot. And I just basically beat everyone into accepting the fact that we're going to call ourselves the Barbarian Camp. And that's the true story of how we came up with the name.
I mean, for the record, I think it's a great name.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want +1 attack, right, to the entire team?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great stat.
The I don't know.
Sweaty bunch of dudes is the image I think of.
Beard helps the look.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Nice. I don't know. I feel like I would go something with like the Scorpion Wasp, because the Globo Gym Purple Cobras come to mind. So it's like,
Direfang Spiders. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. There you go. And now, welcome to the stage, the Direfang Spiders.
You gotta add sound effects to that one for sure.
Oh, come on now. It's my stream. We know it's gonna happen. They're lucky I don't have a soundboard. You guys thought LSV was bad on his podcast. I'd be atrocious. And I guess really lightly, Nick, if you can, what's you and your team's opinion? Grant, I know you're not the official spokesperson, but as far as the, I guess it doesn't matter now that Direwolf has upped their competitive play. Now there's stuff going on, but how do you feel about the rise and fall and the medium of the, I guess, secondary competitive arena for, Tuesday night, obviously the ETS. I know you didn't play about it. Being a more competitive player, how do you feel about all that? I guess in general, you can like broad stroke it if you want.
Yeah, in general, I think it's great. People having more opportunities to do competitive things, people having more opportunities to play in events, I don't think can really ever be a bad thing. If people want to play this game, and I do believe that people do, having more opportunities to do that as a casual player, as a competitive player, is a good thing. Now, my schedule being the way that it is, I'm unable to take part in like Tuesday Night Eternal, or I was never able to play in the ECL or ECS events, but I do think that all of those are a very, very good thing.
Ooh, actually, that's a great point that you say the scheduling thing. That's another question I want to ask. So, Direwolf upped their scheduling. There's a lot more competitive play now. You have qualified, making your day 2 buy already, like a champion. Kudos to you, my friend. I meant to congratulate you on that. So
thank you.
How do you feel about that time commitment? Like that kind of like, hey, there's a million things you can do competitively now.
It is a grind, let me tell you. Playing. So my full-time job, or my career, where I'm working nearly 60 hours a week, there's a very, very limited times when I can personally play these events, and sometimes it's at 4:00 in the morning on a Friday night into Saturday morning. It's a grind. It's absolutely a grind. But I think the important takeaway is Direwolves. They've set it up to where you can play as little or as much as you want to. If you just want to make masters and you want to get your qualification for the draft championship, and you're good with that, you can do that. If you're a super hardcore grinder and you say, I want my buys, I want to qualify for every tournament, I want to give myself the maximum number of chances to play this game and to qualify for Worlds, you can do that as well. Me personally, I've made the commitment to do that. It's an absolute grind. But again, it's just more opportunities to play, more options for people, whether, hey, it's the weekend, I just want to play in this tournament, see how I do. You can do that. Or if you want to put forth the effort and get rewarded for it, you can do that as well.
All right. Well put. Sweet. Well, once again, congratulations to you for making your day 2 buy. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So with that being said, that moves us into the closing segment of our show. I say that, but we're probably going to be here for a while since we're still running along, but I don't mind because Nick, you've been an absolute blast or delight to have on the show. Goes into our What's the Play, where we break down a play that we feel like has multiple lines in it. So this one is going to be a little interesting. It happened today, and I felt like it had multiple lines and justifications. So, Nick, I'll have you start off, but let me go ahead and break it down for our listeners. So, both our opponent and we are at 25 life. They are at 1 of 3 power with Fire, Primal, Shadow Influence. We're at 4 of 4 with Praxis Influence. They have 5 cards in hand. We have 4 cards in hand with the form of Warhorn, Mining Team, Shavka Evangel, and Cult Recruiter. And then the board, our opponent has a 2/2 Quick Draw Evangel and the 3/2 Lothrai Target Caller, which is Inspire Quick Draw. And then we have a 0 of 6 Mastery Whelp, Teething Whelp, when a 0 of 6 Mastery Spiketail Kieran. So 2 2/2s versus a 2/2 and a 3/2. And then once again, I already talked about our hand. It is our turn. So Enrouch, go ahead and start us off first. What's your line of play here?
So you have a ton of options here with Warhorn, Recruiter. You have another 4-drop in Mining Team, a 2-drop that you can pair with a 2-drop Shift in the Mining Team. Like, you have a ton of options here. I focus. There's one thing that jumps out to me right away is on your opponent's turn 3, they chose not to attack with their Makar Evangel. I'm assuming that's the one that came in first.
Correct.
Given that it's on that, so they chose not to attack their 2/2 into your 2/2s. Your 2/2s in play are significantly better than their Makar. So they're wanting to hold back and trade. All right. If their intention is to trade and sit back, I don't think that you can play the Warhorn and attack into them with the Warhorn, because I think they're just going to snap block or double block one of those 2 units to get it off the board. If I assume that's their plan, because they didn't attack. They just want to get your stuff off the board and trade. Both of your units are so valuable that I don't even think it's worth suiting up a Warhorn, taking a double block, and working on some mastery for the other one. So that to me eliminates that option. The other option that looks appealing is, because you also don't want to trade, just passing to your opponent and then using the Recruiter to maybe get them and block. But again, they chose not to attack on turn 3, which tells me they're also not willing to attack on turn 4. So you're not going to be able to get a surprise block with that Recruiter. So I'm leaning against that play as well. And it doesn't really attack into them either on turn 5 very well, because they can just block with the Target Caller. So I am really looking at Mining Team and Shavka Evangel and some combination of playing one of those or both of them as my options of play this turn.
Okay, and with that being said, what kind of value do you put on the Target Caller's Inspire, giving every unit they draw a quick draw? Like, are you high on that? Are you not?
I'm not really high on that because again, our opponent showed that they're going to be playing very passively this game, as they're not attacking their 2/2 quick draw unit into your 2/2s. They're not willing to make a trade with either of them. So if they're planning on playing much more passively and much more defensively, quick draw loses a lot of its value there. I think the longer the game goes on, you are going to be more heavily favored with the Kieran being able to buff your team, you being able to just pump the Kieran and attack and maybe get like a 3-for-1 trade or a 2-for-1 trade off of it. I think that the longer this game goes on, based on the information we have here, the better off you are going to be. So I'm not worried too much about the quick draw from the Lethrai target caller.
Okay, one other thing, just to give you full information, this deck does run 4 grapplers. So having that 5/5 charge on 6, does that change how aggressive you'd want to trade to keep your opponent's board short on units to block?
It does a little bit, but given the power level of the units that you currently have in play, I would still not want to trade, you know, your Whelp off for their Evangel or your Kieran off for their Evangel, something like that. I would not want to make that trade. Now, if your units in play were, say, your own Shavka Evangel or a Bannerman or something like that, I am absolutely just attacking them into your opponent's units, just attacking with your 2/2s, want to get those trades off the board. So your opponent's much less likely to be able to trade with your grapplers when they come down. But given the power level of these 2 units that you have, I'm just kind of standing pat and not attacking with them.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Awesome. Man, that was a great analysis. Like, that's going to be hard to beat.
That was really good.
Yeah, you kind of covered everything. Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
I was like, how am I going to follow that?
I just A-space, call it a day.
No, so I did an opposite play, the play that Nick said we shouldn't do, which was my line of thinking was putting the Warhorn on the Kieran, A-spacing, and giving your opponent the option, do they want to double block the Kieran and get off the board and give me the 2/2 now flyer that can run away with the game, or leave me with the 4/4? So that was my thinking on that. Just get aggressive, try to get it in the air, or you're left with the 4/4 or the 2/2 that's now flying and hopefully on its way to mastery. Basically that was my line of thinking. I think Jedi in the actual game played it on the Kieran, no, on the Whelp, right? And I think he won the game, so it didn't matter. But
thanks for throwing me under the bus like that. I'll finish the story. I will. But okay, cool. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Good job, buddy. It's like, I don't want the spotlight on me anymore. So Jedi here. Thanks, John. What about you?
Yeah, I was way more in line with what Nick was thinking, and when you were playing this on stream today, I mean, I didn't have time to really chime in or anything, but I was looking at this thinking the same thing, like, you know, wow, they didn't attack with this Shavka Evangel last turn, so like, I don't think holding up the Cult Recruiter is going to do much for us here, or anything like that. And, you know, Warhorn on either of these is basically just a suicide attack, and you're, you know, 2-for-2ing, and it's like just not great, and then you're kind of going to be out of gas too. Like, I was thinking first thing I would do is see what's on top of my deck with the shift on the mining team, and maybe that'll help plan out, help solidify my plan, and then just run out the other Evangel in our hand, and, you know, probably looking for power on top or some kind of removal or something like that. But yeah, like, definitely not just swinging into these units, because yeah, like, I don't particularly value the target caller's ability that highly either, especially like when they already have the quick draw that can attack and they're not doing it. So yeah, I was basically with Nick on this one.
All right, so full disclosure, I went ahead and punted to high heck this turn. I actually I did everything wrong, so I'm not gonna lie. I did mention the one play that I did not consider is the Recruiter, because I just felt like for exactly all the reasons that Nick mentioned earlier, it was so non-impact that I didn't even consider it. I did talk about essentially playing 2 cards, the Shift as well as the Evangel. The reason why I went ahead and decided to play the Warhorn is because I was valuing the fact that we were already on 4 power and we had 4 grapplers and 2 Grodov's favorites, where I wanted to keep the board as give my opponent as few opportunities to double block or triple block and get our units off the board as possible. And so I felt like our early game was just there to kind of eat up our opponent's resources so we can really tax them in the late game. This deck does have double Warhorn, and so I was kind of okay doing the 2 for 2 to essentially keep their board out, because in my mind, whatever they don't block leads towards mastery, like we'd mentioned. The flip side to that is that I ended up actually putting it on the Whelp, which I think was incorrect. I will admit that was the incorrect play. My reason behind that was that they were more inclined to block the Whelp than the Kieran, because the Whelp gets out of hand quickly. And so I would have rather offered or guaranteed the 2 for 2 on the for sure block. And the Kieran later on has more added value in the fact that we could pump it on its own. So independently, I feel like the Kieran was going to do a little more work. I do see that as incorrect. I do agree, especially with Nick's breakdown of it. I think the correct play is to just play 2 units, scout the top of our deck, and kind of hold off a little bit. So I do think that was the correct line. And if not, the secondary line would probably have been Alex's line to pump the Kieran and swing, and maybe even not even attack with the Whelp and just attack with just the Kieran. But yeah, so I made the worst play humanly possible. We ended up winning that game, but all of these plays were completely irrelevant, because what ended up happening is our opponent played a Wretched Raven, the 1/4 flying. When it attacks you, the opponent discards the top 2. Yeah, it totally was this game. And long story short, PTSD kicked in, and I had lost to a Wretched Raven before because it milled all my power and my answers to the Wretched Raven, and I literally lost that card. And sure enough, we drew 2 of our grapplers, and we got stuck on 5 power with the grapplers sitting in our hand. And our opponent literally milled all of our 6 power as well as our 2 Grodov's favorites. We did top deck, or we did manage to draw our Cloud of Ash. So our game plan was literally to flood the board and hopefully Cloud of Ash to kill our opponent. And it went down. We had 2 cards left on the top of our deck, and they had played the 4/4. I forgot the name of it now, but the 4/4 Berserk Aegis. If it hits you, it breaks an attachment. And so because of that, we literally had to play every unit that we could on the board, and then finally play the Cloud of Ash to swing in for lethal, and we managed to win that game. So none of these plays were ever the slightly bit relevant in this game, but yeah, that's how it played out. So if you guys want, definitely go check out the VOD. It was I was sweating bullets because I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was on the verge, on the precipice of tilting full.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they were only attacking with the Wretched Raven, so we were just our life total wasn't even a thing. It was just a stupid mill. Oh God. But that's what's the play for the week, guys. So go ahead. I'm not being ashamed. I definitely made the least optimal play. Those 4 lines of play. Yeah, that was the four lines of play, and I somehow managed to justify the worst one of them. And then, of course, it was completely irrelevant. But yeah, this was a game for massive tilt and meme ability for sure. Wretched Raven will be the bane of my existence when we do the Sunset Show. I'm gonna be all over that. Jump on my soapbox about Wretched Raven. And they didn't even have any discard synergies either. Like the whole deck was literally just like I think it was a sack deck. I think by the end of it when they played out their cards, but I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, let's move on before I post game tilt. All right. So guys, we got a balance change. So instead for the constructed corner this week, we're going to talk about these balance changes. That this is Sunday night. So at the time of recording, these changes are going to go into effect tomorrow, and it's combating a little bit of a meta menace, if you will. We'll see if the card is still playable or not, in the form of Endra, Champion of Shavka, which came off of the campaign that has just completely warped the meta. And you know what? Like, kudos to them, to Direwolf. I gotta say, we can get you guys a slight opinion on this, but I think they're kind of in that really fine line of you can't I don't know. Like, you can't make a campaign that has no cards you want to play in your decks, because then the campaign just isn't really that fun. People won't buy it, etc., etc. And then people will hate you for it because you're like, you put 14 cards that we don't care about. But there's also that fine line where when you push cards, like, they can be meta warping like this is. And I believe Vara was when she came out, Baby Vara. And then obviously Palace, right? So, but you know what? Like, I'd rather them push the envelope a little bit than just make a bunch of underpower cards. And where are you guys on this? Nick, where are you at?
I like what they're doing. I think too often, at least as long as I've been playing, Eternal kind of gets stuck in this like good stuff. Just these like 3-color good stuff decks, people just jamming the best cards in whatever colors they want to be in. And I like to see them pushing the envelope and really, really changing things up with something that no other card does or no other deck does or has done in Eternal. Being a digital game, it's very easy to roll it back if something goes wrong, and that's exactly what we've seen here with Endra.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So yeah, shoot, man, you're so good. I should just, man, if I have you on the show more, you're just gonna put
so
me
eloquent.
Yeah, one person just putting the 3 of us out of business. That's great. All right, so Alex, would you mind going down through all the nerfs and buffs of this balance change, and then we'll break it down, talk about the heavy hitters, and then talk a little bit about the ones that actually influence the draft format, because yeah, we actually have some that are relevant to draft. So this is kind of a 2-for-1. So break it down for us, Alex.
All right, so Endra, which we just went over. I guess the next main one would be Haunting Scream.
Well,
that can affect.
We didn't go over the specifics of the Endra nerf, so if you could go over that, please.
Oh, okay. So Endra, now champion of Shafka, is a 3 fire instead of 2 fire, which basically makes her unplayable in my very limited experience with Constructed. Seems like the decks that she was in, it would just not work at that cost. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, basically, I mean, that's significantly slowing down the pace of those decks. I mean, they could kind of kill you out of nowhere on turn 4 or 5. I don't want to say consistently, but it was very possible. I think this is going to slow those decks down completely.
So before Nick completely blows me out of the water, let me go ahead and get my 2 cents so I feel important for about 30 seconds. I actually don't think, I think it's a reasonable nerf, and I'll tell you why. It kind of changes the current strategies that the card is being employed in, because right now we're seeing it coupled with even-handed golem, and reweave is the newest iteration of it, where you can sack many 2-drops to go get her. I think it's still okay, and the reason being is a lot of times when I've seen this implemented in decks, it's kind of more combo finish, where I actually see Endra come down later unless they have more than one, and then they have ways of replicating that. And let's just be honest, like, the busted part of this combo is the fact that Song of Shafka gives you power back. So, and honestly, I've seen these decks make 4, 5, 6 copies of that song. And so I think Endra herself being a little more expensive slows down the combo potential, but I don't think it eliminates it, because really 2 is fine, but 3, 4, 5 cost Shavka songs, or when you're getting that much power back, is really where you start to see the return on investment. So I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not the best brewer, but I think it's a reasonable nerf.
I think it might be.
Nick?
I am pretty much gonna echo what Jedi says. I think that it's a very, very reasonable nerf. So now you can't pair it with even-handed golem, which they even mention. I think that's a very, very good thing. The fact that it's now triple fire makes it near impossible in 4-color decks, but I think it's still reasonable for 3-color decks to get to triple fire. You gotta rework the power base a little bit. But I think you're going to see these 4-faction decks go away, and now moving back towards 3 factions. Your combo turn is now 1 turn later, because you're at 3 power. It was your second Endra that was free, or at 2 power, your second Endra was just free, and it was your third Endra where you started, netting power off of it. Now that's 1 turn later because it costs 3. So I still think that this nerf allows that deck to exist. I think that deck is a little bit slower, and definitely not as format warping because it's gonna lose a little bit of consistency. But I think that deck will still exist, just at a slightly lower power level. One thing I do want to point out though is Endra costing 3 means that you can reweave your Ixtan merchant into another copy of Endra. So you now, instead of having to reweave one Endra in play into the next one, you have the Ixtan merchant to get the Endra from your market, but then you can actually reweave the Ixtan merchant into an Endra, to start the chain a little bit faster if you're using reweave.
Boom. Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, I think it's fair. I do think, unlike one of the ones that hit dear to my heart here, we'll talk about in a moment, I think this was a very respectful nerf. And like Nick said, the triple fire makes it to where the 4-color nonsense is going to be extremely hard, but I think it's still fine in 3-color. I mean, after all, this is a world where we saw Heart of the Vault and Zoe and Zalchi all in a 3-color deck. So I don't think triple fire is going to completely break a 3-color deck from playing her.
Yeah, especially when you don't need the triple fire until like turn 5.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So
yeah, I think this is a good nerf. Yeah, I think it's a good place to start. I just can't believe that they did it so fast. Like, I'm impressed.
like Nick said, it's the benefits of a strictly digital card game for sure.
I think like even just the other day, I think on the official Discord, I think Patrick Chapin chimed in about this. Like, it sounded like he was kind of against making any changes this soon. So I was just kind of surprised that they went this way. But I think it's good to do something. Might as well act now. And maybe if they find that it's not playable in this format, they'll try something else on the next balance patch. Like, that's the beauty of a digital game like this.
All right, sweet. Let's move on. Alex, can you take care of the next one for us, brother?
Yeah, the next one down here on the list from the press release is Haunting Scream, which is now 3. What is it? Primal Shadow. Play a unit with cost 5 or less from your void. It was 2 Primal Shadow. My quick reaction on that, with a cost 4 or less, it is opening up so many more units that you can bring back with that.
Yeah, I think this is a buff. I really do. Like, 1 extra power on Haunted Scream. Yeah, you're cheating a little less on power, right? But like, man, being able to play a 5-drop now, like, think about how many strong 5-drops there are. Like, man, I think this, I mean, it opens up the door to Haunted Highwaymen again. You know what I mean? And that was already, but like, there's so much more. All right, Nick, you could take this one first.
I think this is we haven't had a chance to like play test with it yet, so this is like very early prediction on it. I think it's more of a side buff than an actual like. I don't feel that it's a nerf. Like, we can get that out of the way. I really don't think anyone thinks this is too much of a nerf. But for decks that want to abuse Endra, things like that, it does slow it down a little bit. But the fact that there's so many more units that you can get back with it, like I'm just looking in Felon colors, like Champion of Cunning, like after it's already been buffed and just getting 7 damage out of nowhere. Umbran Reaper is a sick one that you can bring back. If you're able to discard something like a Rost off of some effect, like bringing it back and then it dies and then it shifts in play, there are just so many more units. Jotun Feast Caller is a big one.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm ready to try this thing out. Scream decks that it used to be played in, it's a nerf for, but now we have extra options that I think you might see entirely new Scream archetypes, that you might see Scream go in decks that it was never that it never went in before, and so it opens up all these new possibilities.
Oh man, yeah, this is exciting. Oh god, Feast Color, that's so good. Oh god, that is great. You get the card back
Good, and it only
immediately.
gets better.
Yeah, and then you combo it with Immortalize, so you hunt and scream and then Immortalize. Oh, so much value. Ah, all right, John, do you have anything about haunting and scream?
No, I mean, I've never really been a screenplay or anything, but this definitely gets my my brewing itch going, and I think it's literally only in the nerf category, just to appease those people that were playing, a certain Scream deck or whatever, and just to enable them to get refunds or what. I don't think anyone thinks it's like a true nerf, but it's nice of them to put it in this category just for the refund purposes, I guess.
Haunted Highway was actually the first deck I took to an ECQ, believe it or not. I think the video is actually on YouTube. Like, yeah, I just didn't have any solid deck I felt great about. I felt like Haunting Scream or Haunted Highway was well positioned, so I played it. And I think that was actually the ECQ where I was one win. I'm not even getting into it. That's a sidetrack. Okay, Alex, do you have anything else to add about Haunting Scream? Or if not, then we can move on.
Let's move on to the more side buffs, like Nick had said. There's the Sand Spitter, which is now 3x 4/2, was a 4x 5/2. You want me to just say the other side buff real quick too?
Yeah, sure, why not? Because Sand Spitter may or may not. Yeah, we'll cover all these together. So go ahead and you can finish all these off.
Predatory Carnosaur is now 6x 5/6, was a 7x 7/7. And then there's a long list of buffs.
Yeah, we could talk about all of these for time purposes. Let's go ahead and do all these, and then I'll have John break down the ones that care about limited.
All right. Oh wow, some of these names. Charchain Flail, now 1 fire was 2 fire. Gilded Flames, now 3 fire was 4 fire. Phoenix Stone, now 2 fire was 3 fire. Arcanum Hourglass, now 2x was 3x. Bisma, Revered Elder, now 3 Justice was 4 Justice. Embargo Officer, now Shift 1 was Shift 2. Tax Collector, now Ultimate cost 5 was Ultimate cost 7. Treasury Gate, now 3 Justice was 4 Justice. Eye of Winter, now 2 Primal was 3 Primal. Regression, now 2 Primal was 4 Primal. Oh, that's 2 down. Fearbinder, now pay 2 was pay 4. Hideout Pistol now gives Voidbound to units it kills. It's very interesting. Vile Collaborator, now 2/3 was a 2/2. Knucklebones, now 6 Fire Primal was 7 Fire Primal. Avasor Patriarch, now 3 Time Primal was 4 Time Primal. And Withering Witch, now 1/4, it was a 1/1.
Okay, so it looks like I'll just throw my general stuff and then I'll let the three of you guys kind of take the reins on this one. But it looks like a lot of these buffs was pretty much just dropping the cost to a lot of these cards, which on the surface could make a big difference. We've seen a lot of balance changes before in the future or in the past. Changing the cost of something or the influence by 1 can make a big difference, but that's typically been on the top end of the curve. I think a lot of these cards being mid-range means that it's not going to be a huge impact, but I'm okay with them kind of playing with adjusting the knobs a little bit and seeing what comes into play. The thing that I think is a little interesting though is the things like Phoenix Stone and Eye of Winter, where these are cards that typically want to go in a more control-y deck. I think dropping the cost by 1 isn't really doing a lot because control decks they don't care about 2 and 3 or 4 and 5. They care about 7, 8, and 9 or 1 and 2. So that's going to be a little interesting. The last thing I do want to say is Predatory Connoisseur. Oh God, rest in peace. It's weird because I didn't see a lot of play at 7, being a 7/7, but I feel like the fact that it fought with absolutely everything in the format and killed it was relevant. They did mention that it could still kill Ikaria, but like it can't kill a Sandstorm Titan. It can't kill a Zhou. Like, oh man, I don't know. That was one of my pet cards. Like if I could run Carnosaur and Apex Predator in the same deck, I'd be a happy camper. But yeah, that's gonna be where I'm at. Nick, go ahead and start us off on this one. Some of the things that stand out to you.
So the big thing that stands out to me on the list of buffs is a lot of these cards are like build around cards. And so I think that's why they targeted these cards. Like you have armory stuff with Char Chain Flail and what is it, Tax Collector, and I think Treasury Gate is also something for armory decks.
Definitely.
Yes.
You have this weird pseudo ramp card with Arcanum Hourglass. You have unseen synergies with Bismuth. So like all of these cards are Hideout Pistol going in Gunslinger decks. These are all like build around cards and very, very synergistic cards. And I love that Direwolf Digital targeted these cards as things to buff. So now there's like more incentive to build these very synergistic, very good theme decks. So I'm really cool with that. Withering Witch is the other one that stands out to me. Now, I never got to play with it in its original iteration of being a 1/4, and everyone tells me how good it was then. I have no frame of reference for this, but if I'm looking at this list, that is one that stands out to me as well, just because of how highly everyone talked about that card being a 1/4.
On a quick note on Withering Witch is that I believe it's 5. Let me.
Yes.
Right. So
I think it's 5 Primal Shadow.
And then when it comes into play, summon effect make everything on the board. All units have 1 health. So
except for her.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Shoot. Yeah. I guess now that's actually relevant. So now it can be Haunted Screamed as well. So there's all kinds of crazy synergy there. But yeah, and I agree. I think you're right. I think the fact that pretty much almost all the cards on this list are either meme deck playable or cards that we haven't heard of, I think is very good. I think it's exactly why they were what the purpose of these buffs were, where they wanted to make some more archetypes a little more viable. So kudos to them. Once again, hats off to Direwolf for trying to spice up the meta yet again, and I'm 100% behind that. Alex or John, actually, do you have anything, you being another brewer, what about these buffs and side buffs kind of appeal to you?
Yeah, no, I think you guys are saying all the right stuff here. Like I don't find any of these extremely dangerous buffs or anything on the surface. It's just it's making me want to go do some brewing and see if any of this stuff is remotely competitive. Some of these, are expedition legal cards. So, we can always use some more archetypes that are viable in expedition. And then, Knucklebones is like super fun card, and being a little less there, like that'll be fun. Definitely. The only one that's concerning in any way is Withering Witch. I'm like, with Nick here, like I never got to play with the old version or anything, but I've heard some, I don't know, I don't want to say horror stories, but that's one to keep an eye on, I guess. I wonder why they straight reverted it as opposed to trying like, I don't know, 1/3 or something like that. Or, I don't know. But like some, the same ones that are expedition legal are also the cards that are available in the draft packs. So one I'm a lot more interested in drafting is, for example, is Vile Collaborator. Like that was already, it was like very good sometimes, and like very bad some other times I've found in draft. And this should make it a lot more consistent as far as being good. For example, it being a 2/3 now instead of a 2/2, it makes it an actual unit in draft, right? And then giving dragons lifesteal, that's a great ability to have in draft because there's plenty of dragons, and it might open up some constructed decks, especially in expedition, but like one of the most played dragons already had lifesteal, so like I don't think that's just going to instantly break anything. So I think a lot of these changes are really cool. I'm glad they're trying something like this out. And doing like a mass buff like this is going to inspire a lot of people to do some brewing, which I think is always great.
Yeah, the Vile Collaborator is already a solid pick in draft just because of the +1/+1 lifesteal ability. And you're right, the fact that it gave it another piece of toughness in a world full of really good 2-drops. I think it makes it to where if you have dragons, this card is great, and if you don't, it's still solid. So I like it, and you get punished a little less for drafting it. If you're like, oh man, there's a Vile Collaborator, let's see if dragons is open, and then you take it and you don't make the dragon deck, you're like, oh god, this card is kind of terror bad. But now, it has potential on both sides of the board, and if they kill your dragons, which they want to, Vile Collaborator is still great. And then a side note for Hideout Pistol, I don't know how valuable the Voidbound is. Like, don't get me wrong, Voidbound is always a nice piece of text to have. And I actually, thanks to, oh man, I forget her name now. It's not, I want to say Kairos, but it's not Kairos. What's
Kalos?
Kalos, thank you. There you go. She actually piloted a Gunslinger Stone Scar deck, and I gave it a shot because it was very aggressive. And Hideout Pistol does some work. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I am going to play around with Tax Collector and Treasury Gate because Armory is kind of my pet deck. And Phoenix Stone, I liked it. I tried it out in Genève Control because you're kind of you don't mind wiping the board as much, or even Stone Scar is a one of out of the market to have something. Granted, I still think there's a lot of attachment hate with Pride Leader and Garden running around, so I don't think that card's going to see a lot of play, but I am going to do some brewing with that for sure. Alex, where are you at?
My biggest take for this is that I'm most excited to draft Vile Collaborator now, even though that's not constructed related at all.
No, but we are a draft focused podcast, so you're all right, buddy.
Yeah, no, none of the other cards really. I mean, I'm waiting for John to brew his next deck so I can just copy it over and start jamming it. I
think Regression's another one that's, particularly more playable in drafts now. Basically a reasonably costed removal spell at this point.
Can you break it down for our listeners?
Regression, it was a 4-cost. Now it's a 2-cost primal, and it's like a curse. You slap on an enemy unit, and it every turn turns into a random unit that costs 1 less and eventually kills it. So I mean that's it seems
though,
playable
right?
in draft now. Is it a rare? I'm not actually
Yeah,
sure.
it is a rare.
So it won't come up as often as like Vile Collaborator then, but like, I mean, I was not going to be taking that probably, even on a splash or something with 4, like it's too slow and too expensive for what it was doing, but now it's probably playable.
Oh god.
Most of the cards on the list that are in draft now are in the draft pack as opposed to the Flames of Zolta cards, correct?
All of these except Collaborator,
right?
Yeah,
so it's like
looking at the list. Yeah, I think that's correct.
The draft packs are so big that it's like not really going to impact draft that much. It's more just opening it up for Expedition, other than Vile Collaborator, because that's the one that you're going to see a lot of potentially.
I think another one that's way better now is that Embargo Officer. Like I've already started seeing people playing that in Expedition, and I think that change there is like spot on. It's how the card basically always should have been, and it makes it way more playable.
Yeah, I play it in my Combray deck, and I'm very happy with it. I think it's solid because a lot of people. I play in aggressive Combray decks because a lot of people have their master removal in the market with Designs and Malediction, and just dropping Embargo Officer and then sometimes not attacking with it almost feels like another pacifier, where pacifier shuts off a lot of deck synergies. Like that's exactly. Sometimes you drop Embargo Officer and now they're just looking at their smugglers in their hand, like yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. And then, of course, one other thing on my poor predatory connoisseur is now it doesn't trade with Behemoth or Zumacon, so or Sididi. So yeah, rest in peace.
Why did we make it a 5/6? That's such a mean little nerf right there. Isn't it a nerf technically?
And then put that one in the side buffs.
I know, like they should have switched that one in the bring back from your void.
The Scream. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there.
like give it ambush or something, so it kind of is like a baby apex predator. I don't know. I mean, I say a lot, but it already wasn't seeing play at 7. So I mean, but now I just feel like it's definitely not. Like, I don't know. And Raj, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not high on the Carnosaur here. Even when it was now this has been some time ago, when it was a 6/6 for 6, it was good. And it was fine. It was usually like a market card. You didn't see too much of it in the main deck, but it was fine. I'm curious why. Like, is there something else we're missing as to why the 5/6 versus a 6/6 matters there? I look at this in draft. I'm like, well, I guess it can't eat a Grodov's favor anymore. Like, I think it's a fine nerf for limited. Like a 6/5 killer, or excuse me, a 5/6 killer for 6 is probably pretty good in draft still, but for constructed, this I'm not high on it. I'm not seeing it.
That's a good point. This is another one available in the draft packs, and like, man, a 7/7 killer that felt pretty unbeatable in limited. So
yeah, but it didn't have an overwhelm.
It's a reasonable nerf there. No, but I mean, something that just kills anything and then sticks around and starts smashing, like that is a strong card.
Well, I didn't even think about that they changed it because of limited. I didn't even think about.
I mean, that's not in their justification here, but that's just a good point.
All right, so even that I can make an argument for, because I mean, I might be a little sore because I just got doubled Mirzo today, but Mirzo is a 7/7 for 7. You know what I mean? And now Carnosaur doesn't even tussle with that in any form or fashion. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. Maybe for the dinosaur deck, I guess they were trying to think of curve considerations, because Patriarch now is cheaper and Sand Spitter is cheaper, but we weren't even seeing those cards either. I don't know. Whatever. All right. Do we have any other closing statements on these balance changes, guys, before we call it a show here?
If I had the soundboard right there, I would have done your salt noise stream.
Yeah, and I don't have it on OBS. I just have it on Streamlabs. So I'll bring it over so everyone knows what the salt noise is for sure. All right, sweet guys. Well,
so many exasperated sighs from Jedi in this segment about his poor Carnosaur.
It just
not to go back to Carnosaur, but
I know I can have my little soapbox. I don't know. I like that card. I've
always liked it. Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel bad for it.
Granted, and I say all this, and I wasn't playing it. I was the first person, though, like Nick said, I put it in the market all the time. If I could put it in the market, I did, because it was just a solid card. Like, it's a unit that can kill somebody, or it can kill your opponent. It's a removal spell. Like, yeah, it's just solid. But I guess now I'll just jam Apex Predator, because that card is just, you feel so bad when it comes down. Oh, God, do you feel so bad when your opponent plays it on you? I say that, and then people like Death that just run Shadow in every deck are like, yeah, sure, it's not like I've ever taken Annihilate or Desecrate out of my deck anyways. So, the good old dies the removal. But all right, guys.
Rest in peace.
That's gonna call it there. I think we're gonna put a bow on it. Went a little long, but I don't mind. I actually thought about calling this show the Kitchen Sink with Enrouch, since we're pretty much talking about everything. We might still call it that. I don't know. I gotta figure out which is the more clickbaity title. But yeah, that's going to do it. So let's go into our closing statements and stuff. Enrouch, where can people find you?
People can find me streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Enrouch1. Most Sunday, Monday, and Thursday nights. You can find me on Twitter at Enrouch1. And you can find the Barbarian Camp on Twitter at TBC_ECG.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Let's see. John, where can people find you at?
Yeah, I hang out on Twitch all the time in both of y'all's streams. Big fan. I hang out in Jedi's Discord, Farming Eternal Discord, and I've recently joined Nick's Discord as well. You can find me in any of those places, and I stream on Twitch very seldom, but occasionally, twitch.tv/JohnHolio.
John's like, I'm not only what is it? I'm not only a spokesperson, I'm also a member or something like and awesome. Alex, where can people find you at, friend?
Yeah, I live in the Twitch chat usually, and then also on the Discord. I'll join Nick's Discord here. after we hang up here, and then yeah, just at me if you ever need to talk to me for whatever.
For a second, I thought you were gonna like throw your real life address at him. I'm like, wow, all right, get personal. I'm like, here, come hang out, knock on the door.
Let's chill.
All right, well, hey, EJCon, it's in the works. We're gonna slowly but surely get there through just simple attrition. We'll be the last Eternal content standing. I just have to somehow figure out how to dethrone Loco Pojo on YouTube, and then I feel like I got there. Yeah, so I'm Jedi.
Means that the game's getting better and bigger, so that's good.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is an absolute great game. You guys have always heard me talk about it. That's why I don't mind sharing other people's content, because I just think this great game is great. Yeah, a great game is great. There's your hot take for the day. I know, I'm just batting 1,000 here. Why am I the host of this show again? Like,
it's been a long one.
I don't know why you guys keep me around, but all right. I am EJ. No, I'm not. I'm Jedi. There we go. Thank you.
We are EJ.
Yes. I am Jedi, and this is EternalJourney. You can catch me streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. Then, of course, Twitter, EJthePodcast, where you stay up to date on when we go live. But yeah, actually, remember, let me know, John, whenever you go live, and I'll post it on the EJ Twitter as well.
All right, sure.
And then YouTube. You can catch the video version of this show, as well as great other content, draft videos, highlight reels. Haven't dabbled into constructed just yet, like having constructed brews. I think there's a lot of people that do that. Kalibovich does it. Locopojo does it. That Resolves does it. I am salty, or I'm so salty does it, right? Can one of you guys plug him correctly for me? No? All right.
Why so salty?
Why I salty?
Why I salty? That's the one. There you go.
There you go. So there you go. Completely unsponsored plug in there. And then, of course, once again, the great podcast of Farming Eternal and the Misplay. Definitely great shows to check them out as well. Farming Eternal being limited focused, and the Misplay being constructed focused. And then the Discord. You can catch the link in the show notes where you guys can get a hold of any of us around the clock. Enrouch joined and been a very active member as well. So thank you for that, Enrouch. I really appreciate it. I think you bring a lot of expertise to the Discord as well. So thank you for that, friend.
No problem. My pleasure.
And yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Hit the Twitter, hit the YouTube. Check out Cube Drafting if you guys haven't. I'm not doing it every week as of right now, just because we've been kind of not as popular, but if it does end up being a thing, today I had 3 people be like, what, we're not cube drafting today? So
right.
Might end up comboing off doing a chat draft cube draft, or chat cube draft. Maybe that might be a thing. I have to redo the overlay for those draft packs. But all right, guys, that's gonna do it. Enrouch, Nick, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute delight. Obviously, that's one of the reasons why we ran long, because you're just a wealth of knowledge and a great person to talk to. Thank you for being such a great personality in the Eternal community. I think you're fantastic. So thank you so much for being on the show and eating up some of your stream time to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed my time here. I'd be more than happy to do it again.
Thank God we didn't scare you off.
Whew.
Yeah, big thank you, Nick. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that was super fun to talk to you. Really, really great having you.
Thank you.
All right. So all his information is on there. So definitely make sure you guys are throwing follows, subs, joins, and all that good stuff. And of course, uptick, subscribe, rate the show. It would be absolutely awesome if you guys could rate the show on iTunes. I really appreciate that. I don't think SoundCloud or YouTube cares about ratings, but if you can uptick it. Oh, the giveaway. Yes, thank you. Oh man, I almost forgot about that. Thank you, show notes. Okay, guys. So I'm doing another giveaway for the 50th episode. So this one's gonna be pretty simple. All you have to do is like and share this episode on either Twitter, YouTube, or I guess you could share on SoundCloud, right? I think you could share on SoundCloud. If not, don't worry about it. But this podcast on Twitter and YouTube, and you will get a submission into the raffle. If you subscribe to Jedi EJ on Twitch, you will get two entries into the raffle. And then on episode 50, that's right, 50 of the show, I will be selecting a winner of a $20 Steam gift card. I took down the, spoiler alert, I took down the Tuesday Night Eternal tournament, so I got a cash prize for that, and I immediately am turning it around and investing it into the podcast and to you guys, because you viewers are absolutely amazing. So on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Twitch, if you like and share this post, this show, then you will get an entry into the raffle for a $20 Steam card. I would like to give you guys something a little more Eternal focused, but sadly we don't have that yet. So I'm giving you a Steam card so you can spend it however you see fit. So be on the lookout for that.
You can totally convert it into Eternal drafts.
Yep, exactly. You could do it, or you can even turn it into cosmetic stuff for your Eternal game. Yeah. So once again, $20 Steam card. You could spend it however you like, simply by sharing and liking this post, and you get a submission. And then if you subscribe to Jedi EJ on Twitch, then you get 2 entries into it, and you can enter as many times. You can do it across all platforms. I'm not across all platforms. And like I say, you get you can just keep sharing, retweeting the one Twitter post. But if you do the Twitter, if you do the YouTube, and you do the Twitch, then you will get a total of 4 entries into the giveaway. And this is kind of going to be a staging or a litmus test to see about other giveaways I start to do in the future as this platform grows. And I have actually something I'll talk to you offline, Enrach, about competitive play, considering you're part of a team. Actually, I'll just say it here, because just in case other team members say it, I want to host a EternalJourney tournament. We're still working on what the format's going to be, but what I want to do is obviously have a prize for first and second. But how do you feel being part of a team member? And anyone else that's listening, if you guys are part of a team, you could definitely chime in, leave the comment, leave your opinion in the comments below, or you can message me on the Discord or live on Twitch. I want to do it to where if 3 teams minimum enter in the tournament, and a team is going to consist of anything that has a dedicated, not 3 guys just getting together, but something like maybe Friends of Eternal, that might be a little too big, but the Great Parliament, the Barbarian Camp, and stuff like that. If 3 members of a team enter, and we have at least 3 teams enter, the team with the best score at the end of the tournament, aside from placing, they don't have to be first or second, will get another giveaway, a reward, a cash reward or something like that. How do you feel about that? Is that something you think teams might be interested in, or not really?
I do think that would be something that teams would be interested in. Just more incentive for them to play in the event. Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, do you think it might be something that might encourage other teams to kind of just put together and slowly work up the competitive scene for Eternal?
Possibly. I can't speak for any other teams, but I know that members of Seek Power Gaming and Team Not Tavrod have played in these kind of community events. So I do think that would entice them to play as well.
Sweet. Awesome. So one more tangent to add on to the kitchen sink, so that is Enrach. But yeah, that's it, guys. Enrach, any closing statements, any shout outs or anything?
I think we've covered it all.
Alex?
No, just wishing everyone a good week and good luck in their draft queues.
John?
Yeah, nothing else. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much for listening.
Awesome. All right. Once again, thank you, Enrach, one, for being on the show. Really appreciate having you, Nick. Absolute blast. Definitely check him out. Of course, I already plugged in all the stuff for the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it on any platform that you are listening to. Yeah, that's great. Enjoy the show. If you have any feedback, let me know, good and bad. Just give me details so I can improve the show, and that will do it. So that's going to call it for episode 48 of the EternalJourney podcast. Till next time, guys, happy gaming.